All right, let's get it. Drive time, Tuesday afternoon, 9 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It feels like fall. It is chilly today. Well, relatively speaking, it's about 72 degrees and cloudy. Little rain this morning here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Looks like we're going to get some rain throughout the course of tonight and into tomorrow. And then good conditions coming up this weekend, which is a nice thing as college football gets going around here locally. Looks like we're going to have some temps in the 80s coming up this weekend, but it does feel like fall today, and fall is on its way. And as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That is Porter Larson behind the glass. Happy Tuesday to you. Jam-packed Tuesday with a lot going on. It is cut day in the world of pro football, and we'll keep you up to date on any news, certainly concerning our local players. It looks like Correne Reed is going to make the Broncos roster. Obviously, Denver is kind of like Utah NFL style with a bunch of Utes, even though Devon Vele is on his way to the Saints. So a lot of news in the world of pro football today as the cuts continue to be made. Some trades were made since you and I last spoke. Kenny Pickett is going to be a Raider. The Browns are going to keep three quarterbacks. They released Tyler Huntley on Sunday. And it will be Joe Flacco gets the start. Dylan Gabriel looks like he's QB2, and Shedeur Sanders will be QB3. Spencer Rattler is going to start for the Saints as their quarterback, at least opening day. We'll see how long that lasts. And a lot of news in the world of the NFL today as NFL teams have some difficult decisions to make. Terry McLaurin got paid a 3-year extension. Trey Hendrickson got a $14 million raise for 1 year to stay with the Bengals. And no news as of yet with the Dallas Cowboys, and Micah Parsons continues to be a bit of a standoff between Jerry Jones and one of the best players in the entire league, not just on that roster. They badly need him. So we are less than 2 weeks away from opening day. We are 9 days away from opening day for pro football. The Cowboys and the Eagles on NBC on Thursday night from Lincoln Financial Field will be the first pro football game this year. So good time of year. Probably getting ready for some fantasy football drafts, getting ready to watch your favorite NFL team get going as pro football is right around the corner. Obviously, college football week 0 in the rearview mirror. And as we kind of inch a little bit closer and closer to the week ahead, we'll move most of our coverage to preview week 1. One of the best week 1 slates in recent memory. Of course, a lot of local interest with Utah on their way to the Rose Bowl. Portland State will try to bounce back after getting hung 42 on them by Tarleton State at home. As they're going to be down in Provo. BYU continues to be a massive favorite in that game, and the Bronco Mendenhall era in Logan begins with a game against UTEP. We got 3 top 10 matchups, though, outside of the local stuff. Some of the national college football slate as far as the top 10 matchups with a lot of interest, and it will start on Thursday. Not a top 10 matchup, but Boise State will be at South Florida. Of course, a lot of people eager to watch the debut of Arch Manning. Texas, the number 1 team in the country, but not favored to win their opening game because they're at the Shoe in Columbus to take on Ohio State. So we'll get you ready for a busy slate of college football ahead. Bama is at Doak Campbell in Tallahassee to take on Florida State. And we're going to see LSU Clemson, which should be a good one, at Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina. And then the college football weekend will wrap up with a Sunday tilt. It's Notre Dame and it's Miami at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. So 3 different games featuring top 10 teams, which you don't see a lot in week 1. So, of course, a lot of football on the show today. We'll continue to get you ready for Utah, UCLA, talk about what success looks like week 1 for the Utes, and, hopefully see some signs that this offense will live up to the lofty expectations that most people seem to have for it. So, a lot going on the show. RSL is off for a few weeks as a result of the Seattle game being rescheduled. Their next game, RSL, I think it's September the 13th against Sporting Kansas City, and then it's going to be a sprint to the finish line. 7 games left for Real Salt Lake, 4 points shy of a play-in spot. But some news today that Diego Luna, once again, has been called up to the U.S. men's national team roster. Bodes well for the potential of Diego being able to play in the World Cup next year. For the U.S. men's national team, we've got the U.S. Open going on back in New York. And tomorrow is a big day in the world of professional golf as Keegan Bradley will announce the 6 captains' picks to fill out the Ryder Cup team. 6 automatic qualifiers throughout the course of the season. And Keegan, who was left off the last Ryder Cup team that went over to Europe and got absolutely stomped. I think it's a really fascinating story. Ultimately, how interested are you in golf? How interested are you in the Ryder Cup? I mean, if you've never watched it before, it is quite an event. And the main storyline is whether or not Keegan is actually going to pick himself. And it comes down to one thing, in my opinion. Ultimately, is he one of the 12 best American golfers right now? If he is, he should be on the team. And if he's on the team, does he kind of cede the captainship to Jim Furyk or maybe one of his assistant captains? Tony Finau has been on teams that have represented the United States. Of course, not this time around. It has been a rough season for Tony. I'm really curious to learn whether or not he'll play down in the Black Desert tournament where the PGA Tour will be and in just a number of different weeks. So we'll get you the latest there if any news comes down. Britton Covey looks like he's been waived. This just came down. Britton Covey waived by the Rams. So some local flavor, cut day in the world of pro football. All right, our first guest will be Chase Hansen, one of the best to do it at the U. Great athlete. Initially a quarterback, switched over to the defensive side of the football. Had some time in the NFL. Really interesting guy. I always love catching up with Chase. He's going to join us right out of the gates today. Josh Lewin from the play-by-play voice of the UCLA Bruins. Josh Lewin stops by. We'll learn more about a team that even for people that are previewing them, writing previews for magazines or talking about football on podcasts, UCLA is an unknown, man. I think we feel like we know their quarterback. It's a brand new offensive line. The running back is a Cal transfer. They've lost 8 of their 10 most impactful defensive players, according to Pro Football Focus. So we'll see what Josh has to say about Utah's opponent week 1 at the Rose Bowl. So Josh stops by the program. Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, friend of the show, will stop by to preview the week 1 slate. Maybe we'll do a little NFL with Scott today as well. And then our weekly conversation with the head coach over at Al Salt Lake, Pablo Mastroeni, will stop by. We'll see what Pablo has to say about this random late season break. MLS gets a lot wrong. It's kind of a hokey, corny Mickey Mouse league in a lot of ways. This is not an option, in my opinion, that you would want as a coach, unless you're looking at this with Rawan Cruz, with Victor Olatunji, with DeAndre Yedlin, 3 very key pieces for what you're trying to do, not just the rest of the way, but kind of build for the future. Because there's part of me that's starting to believe when it comes to RSL, it's probably time to just turn our attention to the future. What's it going to look like next year? It just feels like 4 points with 7 games to play. You need a lot of help in front of you, and they would need to turn around potentially their worst form of the year. I mean, they've combined bad form with bad luck, and that's led to 3 straight losses. So we'll see how Pablo's doing today. But 4 days away from Utah football, it's right around the corner. And we've got a lot of college football to talk about on the show. Chase Hansen, Josh Lewin, Scott Mitchell, Pablo Mastroeni, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, on a Tuesday afternoon. And that guy, Porter Larson, happy Tuesday, happy cut day. It's always a bummer when you see some of our local players get sent on their way. This is a brutal, brutal business and a tough league to make rosters in.
Yeah, I mean, and you just see Britton Covey waived by the Rams. He joins quite a group of former Utes today, and probably some names will be added to this list, but Quentin Jackson, of course, who finished at Arkansas. Miles Battle, waived by New England. Travis Broughton, obviously he finished his career obviously at TCU. It's hard to keep track with all these transfers in college football, but yeah, a bunch of former Utes that were on the cut line, as well as some other locals. We'll get to the kind of the whole list once these 53-man rosters are set in stone. But not the end of these guys' football career for many of them. It's a tough league, man. And once you get cut on that 53-man roster, there are opportunities, and there are opportunities to make a living without being part of an active roster in the NFL. A lot of guys do it. So we'll see where they sign, practice squad, and go from there. But yeah, we'll have the updates on that.
Yeah, whatever comes down while we're on air until 6 o'clock. As soon as the news breaks, we'll bring it to you guys. So happy Tuesday to you. Our first guest will be Chase Hansen, former Ute, former NFL player with the Saints. I always enjoy catching up with Chase. But before he stops by, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
All right, as I've been talking about over the past few days or so, Prize Picks has sent over a new offer. So if you have waited and haven't taken advantage of the promo, which gets you free money, you should definitely go do that and then take advantage of how they're helping you start the year. So here's number one. You download the Prize Picks app today. You use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, you don't have to win the lineup to get the money. It's on the house. So promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. You can run your game all season long. And for week one of the pro football slate, they're offering you what's called a max discount. And the max discount is Dak Prescott, more than 0.5 passing yards. So it's easy. Go get the free money, put the free money on the max discount box, and you're going to win. You combine it with a couple of other boxes where you just pick more or less on some player stat projections, and Prize Picks is a place where you can win up to 2,000 times your cash if you get enough of your projections right. So our good friends at Prize Picks hooking you up with some money. All right, 4 days away from the start of college football here locally after week 0 got us going last week with a decent, not great slate. You know, we've talked about Farmageddon. We'll get some more reaction from that game, seeing two really good Big 12 teams go head-to-head in a very sloppy game on a field that was not ready for football. Was kind of a tough look for the conference. I think a lot of people were expecting maybe cleaner football. It got a little bit better down the stretch. It was a close game, but not a great game. And two opponents for two of our local schools. Of course, Utah will see K-State later, and BYU will be in Ames to take on Iowa State. But Coach Witt, his media availability was yesterday, and if you missed it, it's up on the website, which is ESPN700sports.com, and we play that for you every week during the college football season. On bye weeks, Kyle will not speak, but when there's a game week, of course, we hear from Coach Witt every Monday, and he was asked about the dynamic of playing a good P4 opponent juxtaposed to maybe a lesser opponent. And Kyle talked about how his preference would be to play, you know, maybe a lesser team so you can learn exactly what sort of hand you've been dealt. And I understand that mindset. I understand that logic. But the other thing Coach Witt mentioned, and this is a hot topic around the world of college football right now, is the potential of going to a preseason slate in college like they do in the NFL. Now, the NFL has cut their preseason slate a couple of different times. It's down to 3 weeks. And oftentimes, from a consumer standpoint, it's only interesting for the first few series, and then we're seeing, you know, a lot of undrafted players trying to make rosters. We're seeing coaches trying to protect their starters, as you should do. I mean, ultimately, we've talked a lot about the Bengals and the Trey Hendrickson news, and, you know, the wildest number when it comes to Cincinnati is over the past 6 seasons, weeks 1 and 2, their record is a combined 1-11. Last year, they were 3-4 when they scored 33 points or more, so defensively, they've been a sieve. But their head coach, Zach Taylor, has really protected a lot of his frontline guys this year during preseason to try to make sure they get off to a better start. Because as talented as Joe Burrow is, as good as that offense is, if you're, you know, behind the 8 ball, if you're 0-3, 1-4, you know, then you've got a lot of work to do just to qualify for the postseason. So, you know, when it comes to the potential of a preseason in college, there would be some of the complications and unfortunate pieces of collateral damage, namely player health, that we'd have to deal with. But what we find ourselves with in Provo coming up this Saturday is exactly why what Coach Witt was talking about is something that college football should be looking at. Portland State is barely a team that looks like anything other than a JV high school team. They played Oregon a few years back. Oregon hung 80 points on them. Portland State played Tarleton State at home, lost 42-0 to Tarleton State at home. And now they go down to Provo to play a really good, really physical BYU football team, and chances are BYU is going to win this game by 1 million. They're probably going to be up, 35-40-0 at halftime. And what's the point? Like, what are we doing here? We'll learn nothing about BYU. We don't need to learn anything about Portland State because we already know kind of what sort of hand they've been dealt. And honestly, if I'm a BYU fan, I'm looking at this non-conference schedule with Portland State at home, then Stanford at home, who lost to Hawaii and is in this weird position where Andrew Luck has been hired to try to turn them around. They've got Frank Reich as an interim, but it's only 1 year. The agreement was he didn't want to coach this thing long term. It was more of like a favor to a player that he coached. And then BYU's on the road at East Carolina, okay? it's potentially one of, if not the softest non-con schedules in all of the Big 12. And I'm not bringing this up as a piece of criticism for BYU. I'm bringing it up because, honestly, if I'm Kalani, if I'm A-Rod, if I'm the BYU coaches, I wonder how ready my team is going to be for conference play when we haven't been tested prior to entering league. And they enter league with a road game at Colorado. Colorado's not going to be who they obviously have been with Shedeur and Travis Hunter playing in the NFL. They go to Morgantown to West Virginia, and then they're on the road at Arizona. So 3 manageable games right out of the gates. But then it gets real. Utah, on the road at Iowa State, on the road at Texas Tech, home against TCU. And the more and more you listen to people preview the conference, TCU feels like one of these teams that a lot of people believe isn't getting enough pub, that has a legitimate chance to compete in conference. We'll have to see. But that is a bare 4-game stretch for Kalani and his team. So I think Kyle's right. And I think anybody who's prognosticated on this kind of dynamic of college football, there's something here. This BYU Portland State game, or, I mean, Utah Cal Poly, any of these matchups, these FBS, FCS matchups, move them to the preseason and ultimately allow these college football teams to play a couple of preseason games to be in a better spot prior to starting the year. And then when it comes to your actual schedule, you should move to what the SEC is going to do, which is a 9-conference slate. The Big 12 already does that. But you should be mandated to play at least 1, if not 2, of your 3 out-of-conference games against legitimate P4 opponents. That's my opinion. And I know television partners would love that. And, you know, live TV rights is the lifeblood of sport on any level as of now. And I would imagine behind the scenes, things like this are being pushed for. Because some of these early season games, they're boring to watch. They're not fun to attend. You don't learn anything about your team. And you're not properly prepared for conference play if you haven't been, in my opinion, tested prior to entering a league where a lot of people feel like it's a bunch of really good teams that are going to beat up on each other. The margin of error this year is slim. And I just think if you're a college coach, you'd prefer your team to be tested prior to getting into conference play. I think a preseason is something college football needs to look at. All right, our first guest out of the gates. We'll continue the college football conversation with Chase Hansen. Josh Lewin stops by. Scott Mitchell, Pablo Master on a busy Tuesday show. And it's good to have you with us. It's cut day in the world of pro football. It's a tough day for a lot of players who find out that they've got to figure out something else to do this year. Britton Covey has been waived by the Rams. We will keep you up to date on any of the other local players as far as storylines go. 4 days away from Utah football, our next guest knows a thing or two about all the dynamics I just talked about. Chase Hansen, Tuesday afternoon. Chase, happy Tuesday, man. How you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be here, man.
Appreciate the time as always. So you are a player that played in the NFL. What is today like for players who know when you know you're on that cut line and you're waiting for the phone to ring? What are some of the emotions you tend to go through?
It's a weird feeling. It's stressful, and it's just really hard not knowing what the next day is going to look like. For me, I always felt like I was in a position where I had to constantly be planning, what's next. So I think that's one of the hardest parts is you don't know where you're going to be a week from, or, a couple of days from that cut date. And it's tough because all of a sudden you're planning out your whole life. Because if this doesn't work out or you don't make the team, there's a lot that changes, and it changes fast. So it's stressful is the best word I can come up with.
And then, the other side of it is you got to find something inside of you that makes you motivated to keep going, right? I mean, I would imagine getting news the way that players get news on a day like today can just be confidence shattering. Is that fair to say? How do you find the fortitude to keep going back and trying again?
Yeah, I mean, one thing about the game in general for me that it taught me is just the importance of resilience. It taught me how to be resilient, how to take rejection, how to fail. I mean, you hear that all the time while you're playing. Like, you got to learn how to fail in a game, get beat, and then get up and go to the next play. But it's the same with, getting cut. Getting cut it's a shot to the confidence. You feel, you feel like a failure. It's a tough experience to go through, but not to make this, too life motivation type of thing, but it's something that builds a lot of character is basically the best way I'll put it. You gotta get resilient quick and get up on your feet and keep going, because there's not much time to kind of lick your wounds.
Do you think you were properly prepared for the cutthroat business nature of the NFL? I mean, you're a smart guy, so I'm not saying you didn't fully understand it. But it's interesting to hear from coaches and players, former coaches and players, when they realize just what a cutthroat business it is. Like every other area of commerce, this is a front-facing entertainment product that is designed to make a profit for the investors and owners that run the thing. Did you properly know what type of business pro football was prior to your experiences?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts come to mind when you asked that. The first one being I was in a unique position to where I was kind of living on borrowed time. I finished my senior year and immediately started getting surgeries, and my back was falling apart. My body was hurting, and I wasn't sure if I was even going to get that shot to, go see the dream through. So I was just kind of grateful. I was grateful for every year, every opportunity the Saints gave me. This group that brought me in, got me healthy, gave me the surgeries. I was grateful. So it was just kind of a unique situation for me where even though it felt cutthroat, it also felt like there was, a lot of good there. But on the other hand, it is cutthroat. And you learn that really quick that it is all about production. If you're not producing, you might have the greatest name in the world. This isn't always the case. If you're a first rounder, you get, more love and more leverage, and you have a longer road than most. But most of the time, if you're not producing, they have no interest in paying you. Like everyone's got someone to answer to. Everyone's got a job to do, and you just have to see it that way. And I remember my last year with the Saints. I remember thinking, man, if I was the general manager right now, and I just had to make a business decision, what would I do with me? And you kind of have to look at it that way, and that's just the way the game goes.
Yep, it is. And it's just it's always interesting when you kind of fully realize just how replaceable you are. There are very few guys that are safe year in and year out, and some of the best players in pro football oftentimes have had to find different landing spots after being released in a way that feels really, really stunning and surprising. But let's move over here, Chase. From a player's perspective, Coach Witt was asked about this yesterday. So Utah is on the road at the Rose Bowl taking on UCLA, and UCLA is not thought to be a world beater this year. The Vegas over-under for wins is 5.5. Almost every preview I've read, you can't find one that is overly optimistic. So I'm not painting them as a world beater, but that's a Big Ten team. The Rose Bowl is the Rose Bowl. Utah's a 6.5-point favorite. I feel like it's a good, solid test, but nothing that's insurmountable. On the other side of it, Portland State just lost to Tarleton State 42-0 at home, and they're down in Provo, where BYU's a 43.5-point favorite. As a player, would you rather be tested out of the gates week one, or would you prefer a softer landing spot to kind of work out some kinks?
Yeah, I don't think I'm just saying this for the soundbite, but I would much rather have a legitimate game one out the gate, because I just don't feel like it does anything for the long term of the season to start the season with just a bad team, for lack of a better term. I feel like game one, having a big challenge and understanding, we got to come out and play ball, because to your point, whether or not they're the best team in the country or just a solid team like UCLA, I feel like you need that wake-up call, and I feel like you need a game one, and I feel like it's a good way to set the tone for the rest of the season. So I would rather play at UCLA personally as a player, and even if I was a coach, I feel like that's the better move. I mean, I wouldn't want to play, Georgia game one, but I feel like a good challenge is healthy for just the mindset of a team in a season.
So the FBS-FCS dynamic is a fascinating thing for a number of different reasons. I've never been a huge fan, but ultimately, if you're a smaller school and you have budgetary challenges, you roll up to Salt Lake or go down to Provo and you take home a check for a few $100,000 or sometimes a little bit more to bankroll your athletic department and your football program all year. I get the economics of it. I get why maybe in the ecosystem of college football, this is something that's become commonplace. But Coach Witt yesterday also kind of waxed poetic on the potential of a preseason in college football. So I don't know how that changes the economics, Chase, if it's not a regular season game as opposed to a preseason game, because part of this ecosystem that needs to be preserved is the ability of these smaller schools to be able to get paid in order to continue to play. So I'm sensitive to that. But we'll learn nothing about BYU against Portland State. We'll learn nothing about Utah against, against, let's see, who's their Cal Poly, right? So these games that are played, first of all, as a consumer, it's not very entertaining. There's an occasional random upset, but that's not very commonplace at all. What do you think about potentially moving a Utah, Cal Poly, BYU, Portland State to a preseason where college players can have 2 to 3 games to kind of iron out the kinks and replace the FBS, FCS dynamic with a better P4 matchup once you're playing regular season football? What do you make of that?
Yeah, if it was up to me and I was the one pulling the strings and making the calls, I would not do a preseason. I ideally would like to expand conferences in general so that every single game is a conference game. I wouldn't, again, that's a much bigger move, but I'm not a big fan of the idea of just a preseason, essentially these games that just don't count. I would prefer in an ideal world where conferences are somehow, they're just expanded to the point where every week you're playing an in-conference game, and it works out logistically where that just, it can work. And every game is in season from game one. That would be my preference if I could, if I was the one making the calls there. So I don't know if that even practically makes sense in this situation, but that's my thought there.
Let me follow up with one other scheduling question, because for years, for years and years and years, I've talked about what I perceive to be an imbalance in college football based off scheduling mandates conference to conference. So the SEC is finally going to 9 conference games. It's like decades overdue. Randomly, week 9, week 10, it's like Saban would schedule Troy. It was like a glorified bye for some of the best teams in the country, and it felt really unfair that they could essentially take a week off and rest on their laurels. And look, the SEC, I get it. I know that some of the best football in the country is played down there. The ACC is still at 8 conference games. The other thing that I like that the SEC announced is one of the 3 non-conference games you schedule has to be played against a quality P4 opponent from another conference. So either the Big Ten, the Big 12, or the ACC. Do you think we need to move into a space where all the conferences come together and have one agreement on how the schedule needs to work?
I do. I don't know enough about scheduling, and I haven't dug enough into the specifics here, but I do agree with that point. I know that's probably coming to your point with a little bit of insensitivity to the FCS teams, but I just think it would improve college football a lot if every game, and now I'm walking back my comment a little bit, if every game doesn't necessarily to be in conference, but the games that aren't conference should be played against quality opponents. And I don't know how you balance that out from one team to the next, who's playing which teams and how the scheduling works. But I think that would improve college football as a player, as a fan. I like the idea of that.
All right, moving over to Saturday specifically, Chase. I've asked all of my guests this question. I'll ask you, in your opinion, what does success look like for Utah, Game 1, UCLA, when you're on the plane flying home? What needs to happen for you to feel like mission accomplished?
Do you mean just Game 1?
Yeah, just Game 1 for now. We'll just focus on a vacuum.
Yeah, I think if I were to sit into a room and talk to Coach Witt, he would probably say something like this, which I agree with, and that is the defense plays well, the offense doesn't turn the ball over, and they control the clock, and they win the game. I think regardless of the score, regardless of what happens, I think those are the things that you want to see. You want to see a defense that they don't need to be perfect. They don't need to be completely polished, but they need to look like they know what they're doing out there. There's a level of leadership, and there's a level of guys making plays. And then offensively, you don't want it to look sloppy. You want to see them moving the ball. You want to see them protecting the quarterback, and you want to see them being able to run the ball as well. And I feel like if you come out of a game with a win and it feels sound, I think that's a win for Game 1, and then you just learn and kind of go from there. I don't think you need to have all these lofty expectations with a bunch of new guys and a bunch of moving parts, but in my opinion, that's what I would consider a success.
So you hear a lot about the Week 1 nerves, the Week 1 errors, the Week 1 mistakes. It is game week now for Utah football. As somebody who played up there for Coach Witt, what is this week like? What's the rhythm like? Fourth and final week of training camp. You hear things like players are sick of hitting each other. They just want to hit somebody wearing a different jersey. So now that it's game week, Chase, what's it like up there on the hill?
In my experience, there is a different energy because it finally is here, but you don't change the process. Nothing changes, not much changes in terms of how you're studying film, the way you're going out there and practicing. I think the beauty of the way Coach Witt runs the program is he expects a certain level of effort and excellence in the way guys prepare and the way they work, that it shouldn't change much in terms of what's going on in the building and out on the field, but there is a different energy, which is exciting. It's just, the great teams, they don't change a lot, in terms of the process. They have a great process, and they stick to that process, and they're consistent in it, and they do it all season long. And I think that's the process answer, but there is an energy that's fun, that it's this is game week.
How much of the narrative of like, hey, how much do we show our hand Week 1 is real? I mean, to your earlier point about what success looks like, you just go get the win. I mean, ultimately, I'm sure many Ute fans would love an anxiety-free Saturday night. It's going to be a 9 o'clock kick, so a lot of late nights certainly for Utah football. So hopefully they go in there. They have a healthy, comfortable lead and maybe even rest some of the starters if we want to get weird for a little bit. But when it comes to, Aaron Rodgers talked a lot about this prior to conference play because their non-con schedule is so soft. Do you think we'll see Devin have the entire playbook at his disposal, or do you think it'll be limited, or does that base Chase essentially on how the game is kind of flowing?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what the coordinators are thinking and how they look at it, but I've always thought, the don't show your hand thing is kind of stupid, and they should go out there, play their best ball, put their best stuff out there regardless, and then focus on prioritizing winning the game. And then when week 2 comes, you prepare for week 2 and you have 4 cards, you have a different hand. And I think that's the way it has to be in college football. If you're thinking about not showing your hand, that's usually when you end up, losing one you shouldn't have lost. So I don't love that mindset for any team, really.
Do you think it changes a little bit with the BYU dynamic of Bear Bachmeier being a freshman and then playing a cakewalk team week one? I mean, in that scenario, maybe you are able to, limit the playbook and, not throw too much on Bear since he is a true freshman. And, dude, I've been listening to his interviews. He looks so young. I mean, and maybe I'm just getting older, Chase. But if you're A-Rod and it's Portland State and you're going to win by 1 million and you have a true freshman quarterback, do you think it's baby steps in that direction?
Yeah, but I don't think that's it. It's necessarily. I doubt A-Rod's thinking let's not show too much of a hand. I'm sure what he's thinking is let's give Bear the best possible chance he can to just move the ball, give him easy stuff. I feel like it's more of a build confidence and run the ball type of mindset than it is let's not show our hand, or at least I would imagine. I mean, the first half they're going to go out there and they're just going to try to put up points. Second half, if you're up by 3 or 4 scores, that probably changes. I think that's when you start thinking about that stuff. But I think you're right on the head with let's just move the ball, build confidence, give them easy stuff. I think that's what you have to do.
So it's been, I would say, a very drama-free camp for Utah football, which is good news. There have been a few positional battles, but not a ton. But one of the battles was for backup quarterback, and we know that Devin's the guy as QB1. And I suppose, Chase, if there's a silver lining to Cameron Rising's inability to stay healthy a year ago, Utah football has a backup quarterback now in Isaac Wilson that has a full year of Big 12 experience. He played in 9 games. He started 7. And it looks like Bird Ficklin will be the third stringer, although Jason Beck called them 2A, 2B. But what's your reaction upon hearing the news that Isaac is officially the backup?
Yeah, I haven't been able to follow him enough, but I know, I mean, it's hard to have just been thrown in there the way that he was. And I think he deserves another shot. And I hope he gets it at some point in some fashion because I think he's still a great quarterback. Yeah, I think he's going to get an opportunity at some point down the road, and I'm happy to see he's hanging in there and didn't just, kind of up and run for the hills when Devin transferred in. And I don't know, it's just I think it's healthy for a young quarterback or a young athlete in general to face competition, and it's I think that's just all part of the journey. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of develops and how his career turns out along the road because it's funny. Every single year you're going to have someone you're going to be battling against. There's always competition, even when it's your own teammate, and it's always this interesting dynamic, especially in the QB room. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops throughout the season and throughout future years for him as well.
Any concern, and I don't feel like I've heard a lot of concern from honestly anyone, and we have very recent examples of quarterbacks that have taken a step up in competition, namely Cam Ward, and they've been just fine. Devin Dampier knows Mountain West Conference football, and he's about to step up to the Big 12. Any concern about his ability to adjust in a step up in competition, or you think he's going to be just fine?
I don't know enough about Devin to be completely honest, so I don't want to talk like I've watched him a whole bunch. But I don't feel like the step up. I think it's different in terms of the competition, but he's also got better players around him now. He's got a better offensive line. He's got a better run team, better defense. I think his ability is not the issue. Usually the step up is, well, now do I have guys around me that can also make plays? And I think he's going to be just fine with the team that's around him. He's just got to go out and not do too much and play good ball. So hopefully I think I'll put him in a good position to do that, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know enough about Devin to make too much of a comment there.
Let me whittle down a previous question to Devin specifically. I asked you earlier what success looks like for Utah week 1 against UCLA. Utah was just an average offense away a season ago to being legitimately contending for a Big 12 title, but they had one of the worst offenses in the conference, and the quarterback ratings were among the worst in the entire country. So from just the standpoint of watching Devin against UCLA, what are you hoping to see game 1?
Yeah, I hope to see a great relationship between him and the coordinators that are calling the plays for him. I hope to see him make the plays that are easy to make and that are expected to make and not try to do too much, and have the coordinators calling plays for him that put him in a good position to make plays. And I think they should keep it as similar to, to bear. I think they should keep it as simple as possible, and I just hope he can. I think success for him is he makes the plays he should make, and it looks like there is a good relationship between the calls coming in and a comfortability of him making the plays. You know, taking checkdowns when he needs it, not trying to do too much, moving the ball down the field, good run game. It's just it's usually a combination of the quarterback and the offense as a whole being in sync, and that's what I would love to see, and I hope to see for him to build confidence game one.
You're a guy who made a positional switch and went from quarterback over to linebacker. An interesting dynamic has kind of manifested this year, and Coach Witt actually on our show during Big 12 Media Day, he broke the news that Lander Barton and Smith Snowden will be playing offense this year in addition to their defensive duties, and both those two are so vital to what Morgan wants to do on defense that I just found it somewhat interesting. I don't know how much we'll see them play on offense, and in recent years, obviously, we've had Travis Hunter in Colorado, and then Sione Vaki was able to play two ways here as well. What sort of challenge, Chase, as somebody who's gone through this, when it comes to being asked to play on both sides of the ball at this level?
Yeah, I'll be completely honest, Spence, and this is kind of exposing myself for not being a great alumni here and following things. I had no idea that Coach Witt said that, and that's pretty mind-boggling. Hearing it from you right now, selfishly, my only thought is, why didn't he let me play offense? And as a fan, my other thought is, I instinctively don't love the idea, and I back Witt and 100% in all his decisions. But I don't know. I don't love the idea of that. I think that's my gut reaction to this new information is, and I don't know how they plan to use them and in what capacity, but that's my gut reaction there. But we'll see. We'll see what they got planned. That's interesting.
All right, bud, before I set you loose, you've got a new project. We talked about this with you when you were in studio, oomphathlete.com. And, you know, I'm a guy that loves a little pre-workout, but I don't necessarily love sometimes how it makes me feel when it comes to being very highly caffeinated to get through a workout. As you age, you just need something a little bit better. Give us the latest. What do you want our listeners to know?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Spence. Always willing to give me a little time for the plug. Yes, Oomph is my sport performance supplement company. Our single product right now is Flow. It is a pre-game product. We basically market it as a product that is not designed for the gym, so it's not a pre-workout product, because for the longest time, too many athletes have been taking pre-workouts and energy drinks before sports. That's what I did in college and the NFL, and that's what a lot of athletes are still taking. But we have a ton of college, pro, and Olympic athletes that are currently taking our product pre-game. It's a product that's specifically designed for sports that improves things like focus, endurance, power. It's a great product. There's no caffeine, no stimulants. It's super safe. And my last little plug is it's a product I wish I had when I was playing ball. It's great for health. It's great for performance. And we got a bunch of the U boys taking it, and a lot of other great athletes that are taking it right now. And so, great product. We're still growing it, still scaling it, and continuing to make more products. So appreciate the little plug there as well.
Anytime, bud. Thanks for the time. Stay safe. Be well. We'll chat soon.
Appreciate it, Spence. You too.
All right. Chase Hansen played for the Utes, played linebacker, initially was a quarterback recruit, spent a few years with the Saints, and now he's got a new company. He and his partners have started. oomphathlete.com is where you go. OOMPHathlete.com. All right, before we catch a break, like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn. As the hot weather continues this month, make sure you're using IFA's Step 3 Summer Lawn Food for healthy turf that stays green in every season. IFA's Step 3 Lawn Food, it's the ultimate lawn owner power move at IFA. Coming up on the other side, we'll continue the Utah-UCLA conversation. We'll preview the Bruins with our play-by-play voice, Josh Lewin. Scott Mitchell is going to roll by today, former Utah quarterback, NFL quarterback. It is cut day in the world of pro football. We'll do a little RSL. Later on, Pablo Mastroeni is our guest, the head coach of our local soccer club. But we are 4 days away from Utah, UCLA. And always a pleasure to catch up with our next guest, the play-by-play voice of the Bruins, Josh Lewin, on a Tuesday afternoon. Josh, happy Tuesday, sir. How are you?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I appreciate the time. So it feels like, most every preview I've read leaves me with more questions than answers about this UCLA Bruin football team. So I'm going to ask you just right out of the gates, what do you feel like most confident in prior to game one about UCLA?
Nothing. Seriously. I mean, there's been so much turnover, and it's like that everywhere, right? With all the transfers and NIL stuff, and it's just a whole new landscape. And until you see this team together with essentially 19 new starters and 8 new coaches, I mean, it's just a whole lot of guesswork right now. So used to be we could get on these shows with each other 4 days out and talk about what we think we're going to see. I don't know. I have no idea what we're going to see. I really don't.
Well, that is awful news, Josh, because if you don't know, then I'm in a lot of trouble because you're the voice of that team. Let me ask you this. Utah is a 6.5-point favorite. And to your point about, and it's not just UCLA, I mean, Utah, Coach Witt is top. It's basically half the team is brand new, including the offensive coordinator, the quarterback, most of the wide receivers, both running backs. So I'm with you about just like observation, not conclusion, until we get to know these teams a little bit more. And there's no way to get to know them until we actually get to see them play. But what do you make of Utah being basically a touchdown favorite as the road opponent at the Rose Bowl? Does that feel, generally speaking, right to you?
Yeah, I mean, I get it because, it's an experienced group that returns basically 5 offensive linemen that have all worked together. Bruins don't have that. I mean, I think UCLA has a really talented quarterback, but don't know much about these receivers that he's working with yet and how that will all gel and come together. Defense, same thing. A lot of guys that were just used to hearing each other's voices and could operate even in a dark room if necessary. These are all strangers. A lot of SEC guys, a lot of Big 12 guys, a lot of old Pac-12, Oregon State guys coming in and in teams like that. So, on paper, it seems like these teams are reasonably evenly matched. But again, it's just weird, and I don't mean to punt the football on this at all. I'm just being transparent that until you see how these guys work against another talented bunch of guys and not just in practice against each other, it's just complete guesswork at this point. And that's either exciting if you're a college football fan because it's a total blank slate and it could be anything, or frankly, it's really frustrating because if you're a fan or a donor or anything else that's tied to your particular program, you really do need to see some actual bounty having been hauled in before you can, kind of figure out what your catch is.
Yeah, and I'll continue this theme. Like, it's really hard to learn much of anything from a year ago for either Utah or UCLA because of all the changeovers, both with personnel and in the coach's room. But I wonder what you believe went into the decision to revamp much of the coaching staff, because they did win 4 of their final 6 last year with some decent Big 12 wins. It felt like they actually started to figure some things out. Why do you think Deshaun Foster decided to go with this coaching turnover?
Well, everything was just kind of an arranged marriage last year. Chip Kelly left so late. Deshaun got the job super late. And it was just kind of, all right, let's just keep all the pieces together for a year and ride with it and build the plane as we're flying, so to speak. And they did a decent job of that. You mentioned they finished 4-2 in their last 6. They won a couple games on the road, including at Nebraska. So things, they clicked after a little while, but that doesn't mean Deshaun had his guys. And I think he now has a comfort level with the assistants that he's surrounded himself with. They've certainly spent some money in the portal, which they needed to do. And it's still a crapshoot at this point because you don't know truly what you have yet. But it looks like the running backs are improved, including a guy that used to be at Utah. Tight ends, you've got a guy coming off of ACL surgery that they're excited about, Habermel. And on defense, there's guys that have certainly put up numbers at other schools, but again, some of these guys, literally, it's 4 schools in 4 years in 4 conferences. And how do you really slap a label on somebody that to know which guy you're getting? What was he, the guy that was X at Oregon, or was he the guy that was Y at Ole Miss? So now that the season's here, I hate to keep just punting it down the field and chasing it, but we'll actually get some sort of read on all these guys, not just for UCLA but for Utah too. Come Saturday night.
Still so wild to me that we're talking about, Utah in the Big 12, UCLA in the Big 10, and two former Pac-12 buddies now playing a out-of-conference game that has no conference implications. But let me ask you, because you referenced, some of the money spent in the transfer portal, what sort of support is Deshaun Foster receiving from the administration, from the athletic department, and then the community? Do you feel like UCLA has adequately adapted to the new normal in college football?
Well, being in the Big Ten, you're part of that tide that gets raised, right, or the ships that get raised by the high tide. There's a lot more money available. You got a huge TV contract and all of that, but this is still LA, and if you're not a winner, they just don't care. That's one thing that's just so different about it. I've in my career, I've been in a lot of different markets, but LA is just so unique in that, it's such a show me kind of a thing where, if you get out to a 6-0 start, the bandwagon picks up speed real quick. If you get out 2-4, they're watching the Rams or watching the Chargers or watching the Lakers or watching the Kings or there's just so many other things to do. So you got to grab it right away. And that makes Utah a really tough first game because, traditionally Utah's tough and, the coaching staff there certainly hasn't changed nearly as much as ours has, and a lot of respect for Kyle Whittingham and a lot of respect for, the guy you've got on the defensive side running things. And, that's impressive. You guys, whenever the horses get changed for Utah, the fields keep getting plowed. So it's going to be a tough one Saturday. I think everybody knows that.
I think there's going to be a decent Ute fan contingent traveling. One of the, and my listeners get sick of this, but I am a little bit of a Pac-12 snob, and I'm still bummed out. There's no home for West Coast football. And when you look at the road trip options this year, I think a lot of Ute fans are going to take advantage of this UCLA game to be in California, to be in Los Angeles, and just kind of experience that. What sort of atmosphere are you expecting? I asked you to support about the community. Are we going to see a full stadium coming up on Saturday night?
No, not even close. And I get it. I mean, Laramie's lovely this time of year, but Rose Bowl's probably better. The Utah fans always travel so beautifully, and they're always awesome. So that part's going to be great. I hope there's a decent UCLA contingent. The kids deserve that. The program deserves it. But 8 o'clock kick on a Saturday night, that's a rough one. There's a lot of stuff going on besides college football this time of year. And again, if there was a real pounding of hoofbeats for, coming off a bowl game, that you won, or coming off a 9-win season, or, if it was that kind of razzmatazz, I think maybe it's a little different. But even with the quarterback, even with the buzz about Nico, it really is that wait and see attitude that I think Southern Californians are unfortunately famous for. So it won't be an empty stadium. It's not going to be, embarrassing, but I would dare say there's going to be probably about a 50-50 split of Utah and UCLA is my guess.
Tell me what the reaction was there locally, and this is not a Deshaun Foster dynamic specifically. It's not only Deshaun. I've talked to Josh on my show for years about what I perceive to be a necessary step for college football to unify, come together, governing body, commissioner, leadership to implement scheduling uniformity and also implement a widespread media policy. So school by school or conference by conference does not limit access. The NFL gets it. Like, the media is a conduit to selling your program, to selling your product to consumers if you just operate it in just a decent way. What was the reaction when I believe it was Deshaun electing to keep beat writers out of practice and not allowing players and coaches to be interviewed? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, the reaction was not great, and I understand it. I mean, as we've kind of articulated in this community, you're fighting for every eyeball, and it's an uphill fight. So I just, and USC actually has been the one that's been famous for being a little haughty in that regard. Like, we're USC, we don't need you all, we're fine as it is. And UCLA's got one national championship, and it was in the 1950s. I mean, nobody was alive to remember that. So, personally, I think if you're UCLA, you got to work a little harder and be a little more accommodating, and kind of show that you're the opposite of USC, and that, hey, they're very exclusive. We're going to be very inclusive, but it is kind of the zeitgeist, right? I mean, it's not, UCLA is not the only one circling the wagons like that. There's a lot of teams that kind of have that Belichickian mode right now of we're just kind of battening down the hatches, and we're doing our thing, and we don't want to share with the world. And that's probably great for team building. And I'm not a player, so I can't really speak to that. I would probably appreciate that if I was a player. But yeah, to your point, I'm all for growing the game. I'm all for making college football accessible, and the color, the pageantry, everything we love about it. I think you turn on the megaphone and shout it from the highest rooftops anytime you get a chance. But for whatever reason, that's not what they've done here.
Tell me your understanding, and I know there's a bunch of transfers. I've got the list in front of me because you referenced earlier the number one strength for Utah football this year is their offensive line. Spencer Fano is thought to be like a top 10 pick. Caleb Loma, who's only a sophomore, is thought to be a first-round NFL draft-type talent as well. They've got Jaron Kump at center, who's a captain, and one of the offensive linemen that's never even mentioned is Michael Mokafisi, who has 33 starts. They returned all 5 from a year ago. Jim Harding is thought to be one of the best in the country at what he does. What's your understanding, Josh, as far as UCLA's defensive front? Because they're going to be tested right away week 1.
Yeah, at least they're healthier. I mean, guys like Gary Smith and Keanu Williams, who were hurt last year, are back. They don't have that edge guy that's proven. I mean, for a couple of years they had Leatu Latu here, and he went on to be a first-round pick of the Colts, and really, really strong player. And, of course, for years, whether it was Eric Kendricks or just linebacker after linebacker, they always seem to have somebody who could get in there and cause some problems. I don't think it's a great matchup on that side of the ball. I'm super impressed with Utah's offensive line. UCLA's defensive front is not as proven, and that probably factors into that 7-point or 6.5-point spread that was referenced. I think that is a strength for Utah. I gotta hope that on the other side of the ball, that you've got Iamaleava, who's going to come out there and make his debut as a Bruin. He's back in his hometown, about to turn 21. I mean, he's not exactly a fresh-faced 18 or 19-year-old. This guy's been around for a little while, but we're not used to seeing super high-scoring games between UCLA and Utah. What was it, 14-7 at your place a couple of years ago? There was that one great one-off at the Rose Bowl back in, I want to say 2016 maybe, where it was 52-45 and Joe Williams went crazy for y'all. But I don't think this thing's 14-7. I think if UCLA has a chance in this game, and I do think they have a chance in this game, I think it's more like 28-24 or something along those lines.
Okay, Josh, I know you got to get going, so appreciate the time. Have a great call on Saturday. It's good to have football back, my friend. Be well, okay?
It is, man. Thanks so much, and good luck to you guys. Travel safe. Always love having the Utes in town, for sure.
All right, Josh Lewin, play-by-play voice of the UCLA Bruins, Utah's first opponent, 4 days away at the Rose Bowl. Don't forget, 9 o'clock kick time. It is on Fox. Our pregame coverage will begin at 5 o'clock on Saturday with Porter. He'll have you taken care of, and then we'll send it over to Bill and Scott and Sly live in Los Angeles at the Rose Bowl. Utah remains a 6.5-point favorite. And, yeah, as I've referenced, a few weeks back when we started to move most of our coverage over to the college and pro football space, you start listening to previews, reading magazines. Nobody knows anything about this UCLA team. That was their play-by-play voice. The first thing I asked him is, what do you know? What are you confident? He said nothing. It is a group of new players, 8 new coaches. They lost 8 of their 10 most impactful defensive players. They were atrocious running the football a year ago. To Josh's point, they're a little healthier in the trenches, but if that defensive front isn't ready, Utah's O-line should have a field day. So 4 days away from game day. Of course, BYU welcomes in Portland State, and the Bronco Mendenhall era begins with a game against UTEP up in Logan. All right, I want to tell you about my friends at Advanced Window Products. You get $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. Okay, so this is a local Utah company operated by Nate Orchard, Utah legend, mayor of Sac Lake City, 7 years in the NFL. His buddy Jake Weber, they run it together. It's family owned. They're here for our community. They've got great rebates and guarantees. They are transferable. The warranties are transferable to new homeowners. So if you're selling a home, getting ready to put it on the market, you feel like windows could help out the value, definitely check it out. The weather is still warm now. It's about to get cold. And if you have some real temperature imbalances in your home, there's a good chance it's because of your windows, and you're probably wasting a lot of money on your power bill every month. So take advantage of their fall football special, where you can save $2,500 when you buy 10 windows or more. Now, the nice thing about this offer is that maybe you're going to buy or sell a home in a couple of months. Maybe you don't feel like you need to replace windows now, but you plan on doing it soon. If you call today and get on their schedule, you lock in their fall football savings of $2,500 when you buy 10 windows or more with our friends at Advanced Window Products. So here's the number. It's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Don't forget, Scott Mitchell will join us in the 4 o'clock hour. Then we'll move over to Pablo Mastroetti. Started things off with Chase Hansen today. A fun conversation with Josh Lewin, the voice of the Bruins of UCLA. So we'll do some more college football coming up on the other side right here. Porter, I got a question for you. You ready?
Always ready.
Well, I've got several questions here.
I said I was ready for one.
Looks like I've got maybe 6 or 7.
Okay.
So just bear with me. Where can you find a giant yellow slide, the best corn dog in the world, a sculpture made completely out of butter, blue ribbon winning arts and crafts, and chickens, cows, pigs, and horses? Oh, my.
There you go.
A rodeo, a demolition derby, a world-famous comedian, a legendary rock band, just to name a few.
Well, luckily, as a former frequenter of the Utah State Fair, a former member of the Future Farmers of America, I often frequented the Utah State Fair. So.
Wait. Did you say Future Farmers of America?
Yeah, FFA. It's like, I think you have to do it at the school I graduated from.
This is like an organization that you join?
Yeah.
Do you pay dues?
For some things, if you want to be like really involved, there are dues, there are presidents, there are all of the above.
Have you ever tried to date on farmersonly.com?
No, I haven't. I haven't yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, anyway, you can find all of those things, as Porter just referenced, at the Utah State Fair, happening September 4th through the 14th. More information can be found at ESPN700sports.com.
I'll be there.
Are you going to go to the fair?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay, so I had this conversation with Sean the other day during Crosstalk.
I'll grab a corn dog.
There's nothing wrong with a good corn dog. I'm not anti-corn dog. I'm not anti-fair. Let me be clear. You can have a good time down there. But do you think there are, because Sean and I have this back and forth, and I'm not anti-Disney, but when it comes to Disney adults, there's something about them that make me extremely uncomfortable.
Okay, I follow.
Sean dropped the stat during Crosstalk. He read that 37% of people in line to take pictures with Disney characters are Disney adults that are not there with children. That seems aggressively high. 37. So 4 of every 10 people waiting in line to get a picture with like Goofy are Disney adults that are there sans children. That's weird to me.
I agree. It's a little weird. I think it's weirder that we have that data set, that someone is researching it. That might be weirder. The Instagram Disney adults. Yeah. I don't know. Do your thing. I will say,
I don't know, dude.
There's an element of the fair that's not there anymore. It's not as like carny as it maybe was in the 90s.
Okay.
You're not going to see like a big bearded lady as a I think that used to be like a thing you could go see.
Yeah, in like the 40s. Not bearded ladies anymore. What is wrong with you? Like at the circus? When's the last time a bearded lady made an appearance anywhere?
I think at the Utah State Fair.
I'm going to need you to look that up.
2002 or something.
Yeah, okay, 23 years ago, a bearded lady was a thing. Now, my question is, so do you think there are, like, State Fair adults, like there are Disney adults?
Yes.
There is.
I saw Three Doors Down at the State Fair once.
All right. That's a horrible combination. I do like me a demolition derby. I like a good demolition derby. That is chaos, and I'm here for it.
That's fun. You can have a good time there. I think, is it Gabriel Iglesias? I think it's the comedian that's going.
I have no idea. My copy points just say a world-famous comedian, a legendary rock band. Do you have any idea who the rock band is?
I hope it's Three Doors Down again.
If it's at the State Fair, it's probably Three Doors Down or something like it.
Utah State Fair band.
But anyway, Utah State Fair happening in September 4th through the 14th. More information at ESPN700sports.com. And look, I'm not... What's the thing the kids like to say these days? Don't yuck my yum. I'm not yucking anybody's yum, okay? Like, if you want to do the Disney thing, do the Disney thing. Here's what blows my mind.
Third Eye Blind, by the way.
Third Eye Blind is at the State Fair. Our guy Cam Rogers is juiced. He loves some Third Eye Blind.
We'll have to invite him.
When's the last time you even went to Disney for the day or for, like, the afternoon?
Me?
Yes.
Never.
Okay. Well... It is wildly expensive. Like the economics of that, because Disney adults, I actually am aware of a dynamic of a couple who a few years ago during COVID, they could work remote. So they moved close to Disney in order for them to be able to go to the parks literally daily.
Well, because you can buy a season pass.
Still.
And then you have to go every day.
But it's not like an affordable thing. And so if you don't live close by and you don't buy a season pass, let's just say you and a few of your homies from Summit County, one weekend you're like, bro, let's do this. We are doing the Disney thing. We're going to fly down on Friday. We're just going to crush parks for 4 straight days. You stay at a decent hotel. You have to eat in the parks. You have no choice. They don't let you bring food in. Over a 4-day period, you are all spending probably $3,000 to $4,000 for that experience.
Yeah.
Do you know how many other things you could do with that kind of money?
A lot. You could invest that. You could gamble that on sports betting on Prize Picks.
Well, I'm not necessarily leaning in that direction, but you could also go to like a beach.
Uh-huh.
You could have like a nice golf vacation or do something other. Because the other thing about Disney adults, it feels like this isn't a once or a twice a year thing. Disney adults aggressively attend and go on Disney trips, and they're at the theme parks like often.
It's a lifestyle, Spence.
Yes, it is.
You just don't get it.
It is. I don't get it. And you know, maybe some people don't get golf. A lot of people don't get golf.
And you can rack up the price.
It's not a cheap hobby.
Golf, skiing. There are a lot of hobbies that are sometimes I think like intentionally super expensive, but you know.
But I'm not trying to offend any, because I also would like to be clear. I have taken my son to Disney multiple times, and I love watching him enjoy himself. And there's some fun rides. I'm not saying it's not a good time. I'm not saying it's a horrible time. I guess I just have a hard time picturing like me and my buddies planning a trip and being like, this is the one. Okay. We're heading down, doing the Disney thing all weekend long. I guess I just don't relate to it. I'm not trying to salt anybody's game here. I just feel like there are other things you could do economically with that type of investment.
I'm assuming the adults that are going to Disney without children, probably not into sports, probably not really, I don't know. It's probably something they got into when they were children, and it really is like part of their routine, part of their lifestyle now. There's a roller coaster there.
Which are we talking, California Disney or Disney World in Florida?
California.
Okay.
I forget what it's called, but it's actually really fun.
The Matterhorn? California Adventure? Because,
yes.
Okay, California.
It's that one.
Okay.
It's got like multiple loops. I like a good roller coaster.
Yeah, but there are plenty of places where you can get better roller coasters than Disney. With Disney, you just pay for the whole like Disney experience. You are Disneyfied the entire time.
Yeah, Lagoon's not $3,000. It's not cheap, but it's not $3,000.
Lagoon has raised their prices, by the way. You know what? Let's just talk theme parks all show long. But anyway, Utah State Fair, check it out. Porter, I have not asked you the question I've asked the majority of our guests, and don't forget, Porter will be hosting our Utah football pregame coverage all year long, beginning at 5 o'clock on Saturday, 4 hours prior to kick. Porter will have you taken care of with a revolving cast of characters. And, you know, I'm chuckling a little bit during the break because Josh Lewin, the play-by-play voice of the Bruins, stopped by last segment. And he calls their games and has no idea what to expect. Right. And that tells you all you need to know because Josh is very good at his job. Utah, 6.5-point favorite. You tell me what you think success looks like week 1 for Utah at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, success in this game for me, for Utah, especially considering what their maybe goals are compared to what UCLA's goals are, is a 10-point win. I really do think that Utah, you know, if you squeak out a win over UCLA, I don't think you feel great about that. Now, you go 1-0, that's ultimately the only thing that matters. It's the only result that really, you know, has any stock on the rest of your season. And even then, Spence, we've talked about this before. This is no longer a Pac-12 game. If you're 0-1 after week 1, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter outside of, you know, your view of the Big 12 and the Big 10 and maybe non-conference stuff. For Utah, it doesn't have a huge effect. But a success, I think, looks like a double-digit win. And that has less to do with what I think about Utah and more to do with what Josh and everyone I've talked to and everything that I've been able to learn about UCLA. And that is that they're just so far away from being a complete project. Now, Utah, they'll still be in somewhat of an install as they go into week 1, as They are under a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, a new running back. Keep going if you want to. But even that pales in comparison to the turnover at UCLA, the new faces they have, the 65+% of their roster that is new faces, coaching staff turnover, support staff turnover. There are not many people in that program, and I'm talking from janitors to the head coach, that I know that were in that program 5 years ago. It's a completely different thing, and that takes some time. I think Utah should get out of there with a win, and I think if it's not more than by a touchdown, they might not feel awesome about it, although they'll be 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately the Vegas line for UCLA is 5.5. So most people believe that they have a chance to maybe barely make a bowl game. It is year 2 for Deshaun Foster, who kind of burst on the scene in a really weird way with his first presser at Big Ten Media Day. But they do have a year of experience under their belt after playing in the Big Ten a year ago, and did finish off the season pretty well. And ultimately, Chip Kelly leaves, so you were kind of scrambling to figure that out. Eric Bieniemy steps in, was not really up to the task, but did get some decent conference wins down the stretch after a really atrocious start. But 8 new coaches, as Josh kind of walked us through. And, the other thing, Porter, and again, I'm not trying to make light of it and chuckle about it, but I don't know how many Ute fans are going to be there. I've got a grip of buddies that are going. We had Sly on the show yesterday. And, ultimately with this road trip being in Los Angeles, being in California, a former Pac-12 footprint, your other options this year are Laramie, the Porter Larson Bowl, West Virginia, of course, BYU just down the road, Waco, and then your final game is at Kansas. So as far as the road trip options, I do feel like there will be a healthy Ute fan contingent, but then asking Josh, so are we going to have a full stadium? And he's like, no, not even close.
Right.
It's like, dude, wait, what?
Well,
and I will say it's been a while since I've watched a UCLA football game and felt like the atmosphere is even kind of good.
I think they had a USC UCLA game that got pretty full. Like it looked like a game in Los Angeles that football fans were at. That's the only time in maybe the last half decade that I've seen outside of when Utah and Ohio State were playing and Utah and Penn State were playing, that stadium in Pasadena looked like there's a legitimate football game going on. I mean, listen, I know there's other things to do in Los Angeles. I know UCLA hasn't been great. I know Chip Kelly didn't give a rip about involving the fans in any which way. There's a lot that goes into like having an involved fan base and having an involved student section. And with the distractions of Hollywood, I'm sure there are other challenges to doing that, right? It's not Provo where you could probably add on to that stadium in Provo and it'd still sell out, right? But you got the Lakers, you got baseball, you got a whole bunch of stuff to compete with in LA, and you have to put a good product out there. If you don't put a good product out there, people are not going to show up. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what that atmosphere looks like, because I do think there's going to be a good contingent of Utah fans, but that's 100,000 seat stadium if it's close to capacity. So that won't make a huge dent, even if the traveling party is strong.
It's a brand new secondary. UCLA is replacing 8 of their 10 most impactful defensive players, according to Pro Football Focus. The secondary is brand new. They've got some returners up front. Keanu Williams was hurt and missed most of last year. Gary Smith also had some injuries. He's back. Siale Tuapaki is back as well. So they've got 3 defensive linemen that have some experience from a year ago. But I'll ask probably all of our guests throughout the course of the season when we're previewing the opponent what the front is going to look like, because the number one thing that everybody talks about, if you read a Utah football preview, if you listen to a Utah football radio show or podcast, they all start up front. They all start with the offensive line up front. But when it comes to Devin Porter, when it comes to quarterback play, we talked to Chase about this a little bit with, what is it going to look like for Aaron Roderick and this playbook with Bear Bachmeier against a Portland State team that will provide zero pushback? It's almost like annoying that we have to cover this game. I do like what Kyle had to say yesterday about moving some of this stuff to the preseason. But when it comes to how this, and Kyle talked about this yesterday, they're going to have to make adjustments all game long, starting in the first quarter, depending on how the game is flowing. And with all the question marks with the new personnel on both sides, it's hard to really analyze what the play calling is going to look like because we haven't seen Jason call plays here yet. But what do you want to see from this offense, Devin Dampier, week one?
Yeah, I mean, with Utah and this offense against UCLA, you mentioned it. It's going to start up front. Not only is Utah's offensive line their strong point, but UCLA's defensive line is kind of their only strong point, right? As far as what we know about UCLA. In the middle is where they are at their strongest, and specifically on the interior. So they're going to lean on those guys to try to stop the run, try to force Devin Dampier to beat you and not beat you with his legs. They're really try to contain him and force Devin Dampier to run the offense and do quite a bit of it through the air. That's what UCLA will want to do. And if you're Utah, you kind of watch through that scope. How is Devin Dampier able to run Jason Beck's offense? The scrambling, the run game, I think that stuff's all going to take care of itself. How does Dampier go through his progressions? How is he able to identify things pre-snap and hit the correct audibles, hit the correct reads in Jason Beck's offense? The impromptu stuff, the off-script stuff, that's all going to come along as he's more comfortable in the offense. But in week one specifically, I'm going to be watching him a lot pre-snap and a lot on specifically pass plays, how he's getting through those progressions, because I think that is the big question mark with him. It's not about his legs. It's not about his ability. He can sling the ball. He can get out of the pocket and make plays. So that's kind of the scope I'm watching Devin Dampier through. And for him, it's not his first year in this offense. So he should be the one that really looks comfortable and looks like he's maybe orchestrating everyone else, as a quarterback should. But that's really the scope I'm watching Devin Dampier through, because it's going to be important as the season rolls along.
UCLA has also rebuilt their offensive line. They've got two players coming back in the Garrett I think it's DiGorgio, and then Sam Yoon. They're back from a year ago. Sam's their starting center, but the other three are all transfers. Cortland Ford from Kentucky, Julian Armella from Florida State, and Eugene Brooks from Oklahoma. So it is a brand new offensive line in addition to a brand new secondary. Again, some returners along the defensive front. They were 132nd in the country in running the football last year. Javion Thomas is a Cal transfer. Mikey Matthews, former Ute, is on this roster as well. So, of course, a lot of the attention has come down to the quarterback situation with Nico Iamaleava transferring from Tennessee. And ironically enough, that triggered Joey Aguilar, who we all thought would be UCLA's quarterback, to transfer to Tennessee himself. And it looks like he's going to start for Josh Heupel. The quarterback is a playmaker. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It was a heavily covered, publicized fallout with Tennessee over NIL money. And the reports are Nico is paid $4 million per year to play for UCLA. Interesting piece by ESPN yesterday where they broke it down position by position as far as how much these kids are being paid depending on what position they play. So I do think Utah's defense will be tested by a very talented dual-threat quarterback. But, again, as we approach game day and we have guests on the show, the more and more questions we ask, the fewer and fewer answers that we get. But, the dynamic of this being an opening game, I think, is a good, solid one. I know Coach Witt spoke yesterday about potentially the desire of having a little bit of a softer landing spot. I would prefer to get to know Utah in a way like this, like on the road against a legitimate P4 team on national television. How does Devin respond? I know Ute fans will disagree with me. Porter, I would not mind seeing a close game. I wouldn't mind seeing a close game because I just want to see how Devin responds in that environment on the road against a solid team when there's something on the line. When we had Devin on during Big 12 Media Day, first question I asked him, I said, I want to talk to you about your relationship with pressure. Playing that position, there's a different level of pressure every single snap. And playing that position, you handle the ball every single play. So I think most Ute fans would prefer an anxiety-free Saturday evening. I wouldn't mind a little bit of a close game to see how Devin responds.
Well, especially considering the fact that you are playing a Power 4 opponent, a Big Ten opponent nonetheless, we talked about it. It may not be full, but it's the Rose Bowl. It's still the big lights. It's, a national TV audience. Not a better situation to kind of go through a test run than a non-conference game early season, especially when this quarterback hasn't seen those lights before. New Mexico, they had a good year, one of the top offenses in the country, but you haven't seen a stage like the Rose Bowl. You haven't seen a stage like a Power 4 game. And for him, why not get a little bit of a tense situation late in the game so you can see how he handles it. Maybe see how Utah and that offensive line run a 2-minute offense, right? How you win in week 1, more so than any other week during the college football season, does not matter. Just go 1-0. Like I said, a success looks like a 7 to 10 point win, maybe more. But that really is just for optics. When it's week 1 and your team has never played football together, literally has never played football together with all these new transfers, just get out of there with a win. If it's 27 to 26, cool. You move on to week 2 and you're 1-0.
Yeah, and let me just say this, my PSA every single year prior to the start of the season, if at the end of the first quarter or if at halftime it's like 6-3 or 7-7, it's okay.
Yeah.
I always get such a kick at, like, if after the first 3 or 4 possessions it's like 3-0, suddenly social media explodes like, dude, I knew it. Overrated.
You would have thought Southern Utah was going to beat Utah like each of the last 8 years.
Let it breathe. Give it some time. Okay, like, let's just analyze the game after the game is over. You can always not send the tweet.
I was going to say, especially a Kyle Whittingham team who historically they turn it on in like the second, third quarter, not only of the game, but of the season. Relax for the first half hour or so. Let those guys do their job and, take the edge off with whatever vices you may have.
Yeah, it's a 9:00 start, so let's hydrate.
Yeah,
okay, we're gonna hydrate. We're gonna eat some dinner. We're gonna mix in some protein. Okay, we're gonna pace ourselves this year.
Okay.
I'm not saying don't have a good time. Get together for your watch party. Go hang out with your boys. But 9:00 start. So let's just remember, if we're gonna get loose and imbibe a little bit, maybe leave the social media machine on the side.
I was just gonna say, do your thing, but if you do, maybe put the DraftKings and Twitter down. Just a PSA before football season, because there's always, and sometimes, listen, it's guys we know, it's our friends, that at some point during the football season, they get a little too emotional and a little too online, maybe a little too liquid couraged up, and then the next morning, all those tweets are gone.
Yeah,
but they were there.
Yeah, no, we saw them. The screenshots exist. So when it comes to a 9:00 start, let's get a healthy day of activity, maybe some exercise, maybe some sunshine, maybe we get outside, and then maybe we mix in a good healthy dinner, and we're hydrating throughout the course of the evening. And then when the game starts, maybe have a couple of pops or whatever you do. But if you feel like you might be a little bit too loose, let's go ahead and not send the text. Let's go ahead and not send the tweets. Let's go ahead and not double down on the app so you can make your money back. Let's just keep calm and carry on. One step at a time, guys. We can do this. I know we can.
I have an idea for football season.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Let's hear it.
It's a form of social media where they don't get sent anywhere. It's like Creed's Thoughts or whatever.
Oh.
Right?
/creedthoughts.com or whatever.
If you're like an insane college football fan, I'm looking at you. If you're like wondering if I'm talking about you, I'm talking about you.
Indeed.
And you can log on. You got a username. You got a profile. You got a screen. A picture so you can see it. You can see it on there. It gives you that like gratification of sending it out, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just shows up on your feed.
This actually might be brilliant.
Thank you.
I will tell you that both my email out box and my text out box has several drafts that I've typed out and have decided not to send. It's actually a very healthy exercise because you feel like you exercise the demons, but you don't ruin friendships.
There you go.
I like it.
Thank you.
Get on that.
I don't know how advertising will work when it doesn't go anywhere, but I'm working on that.
Yeah, we can worry about the monetization later after the app is created. So we are 4 days away. Don't forget our Utah football coverage begins at 5 o'clock on Saturday with Porter, and then we'll send it over to Bill and Scott and Sly. It'll be a late night in Los Angeles. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Scott Mitchell is our first guest during the 4 o'clock hour. Wait, are we live on air? Did you really play this bump leading us into the set? We're back, right? The show is back live on air.
Yeah, this is the drive.
So what are we doing? What do we got here?
Just a little Toby Keith. Little, you know.
Wait a second.
Ain't as good as I once was.
I thought you were very much anti Toby Keith. May he rest in peace, right?
May he rest in peace.
Yeah,
for sure. I'm not a big Toby guy. I'm not a big like '90s country guy. I'm not like beer and truck country guy.
Okay,
right. But I don't know. I like this song. Scott Mitchell used to be pretty damn good.
I think Scott Mitchell is still good.
Yeah, but he can't sling it quite like he used to. At least I don't think he can.
Scott Mitchell.
I'll run some routes for him if he wants to.
Okay, Scott Mitchell, Tuesday afternoon. Scott, I would imagine if we got a football in your hand, you could still sling it a bit, yeah?
I probably could sling it as good as I used to, and I don't because I don't want to know if I can't. So I live in that world of, I'm as good as I used to be because I don't try to find out if I'm not.
That's actually pretty intelligent. When's the last time you actually tried to throw a football as far as you possibly could?
As far as I possibly could? Gosh, that's a good question. I would say probably the last alumni flag football game I played in.
And when was this?
It would have been pre-COVID, pre-COVID, probably 2016, 17, somewhere around there.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, by the way, did you ever take softball batting practice when we were broadcasting?
No.
Oh, you didn't. Okay.
No, unfortunately, they did that the night before, and they couldn't find anyone to pitch to me on that more. I'd have been fascinated to see how I'd done. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right, fair enough. All right, Scott, it's game week. It is game week.
Yes.
Take us behind the curtain. What's going on up in the hill right now as we're getting ready for UCLA?
Well, it's one of those times where you're so excited that you're just not going to have to practice against your own guys at the end of the week. There's actually a prize at the end of all your preparation. There's some guys are loose and excited. Other guys are tense and nervous, and probably the coaches are the ones that are more tense and nervous than the players. And this is a new direction for Utah as far as bringing in so many transfer portal guys. This is a homegrown program that's kind of got outside of itself, and this Saturday we'll find out if that idea or that direction, that strategy is going to work.
So I've been asking everybody this question. I'm going to ask you the same. We talked about it last segment. We had Chase Hansen on earlier. Week one with a roster full of new players for both these teams. For all of these teams now, not just these two. So there will be mistakes. There will be errors. There will be penalties. Hopefully it's as clean as it could possibly be. But what do you feel like success sounds like for Utah football week one? When you're on the plane flying home, mission accomplished, in your opinion, sounds like what?
Well, it sounds like the defense is going to play like it normally has for the last 20 years. That's what it looks like it's going to be, but that would be a success if they did that. If they were sharp and in tune, they made plays, they limited the quarterback, they got turnovers, they got off the field. That's a huge win for the defense, and I think it's very possible offensively. The challenge, and I think it's a challenge for so many teams, is trying to do too many things. I just keep hearing all this stuff about, Lander Barton and Smith Snowden and this guy and that guy getting involved in the offense. And they got Bird Ficklin. They got a special package for him. And it makes me nervous because you just don't have enough time to practice and prepare. So you want to see an offense, a successful offense is one that efficiently moves the ball down the field, doesn't try to do too much, kind of identifies people and things that works and scores. One of the things Jason Beck was good at New Mexico was scoring in the red zone. And if Utah can move the ball and score in the red zone, that's a great day for this football team.
So let me follow up with the Lander Smith stuff. Lander Barton, Smith Snowden expected to get some time on offense. Morgan Scalley asked about this last week. We had Morgan on the show last week as well, and he said what you would expect him to say. Let's put athletes in the best position possible to make plays and help us win. Do you view it as an indictment on the playmakers on the offensive side of the football if they're really looking to implement some stuff for Lander or Smith, or is that just a compliment to the type of athletes and playmakers those two are?
No, it's the former. It's the first thing you say. It's absolutely an indictment. This defense historically they steal players from offense that are good and put them on defense. So it doesn't float the other way unless there's a real concern there. And coming out of spring football, I think there was a real concern. I really do. I felt concerned what I watched and saw. From the wide receiver position and some of the other depth that was there. And, Devin Dampier looked great in the spring, looked like, as advertised, but the other guys, not so much. And so, if you have to rob Peter to pay Paul, it eventually could wear on you as the season goes on. And I think Sione Vaki, I think it wore on him when he was playing and was a lot of the offensive spark that Utah had. So, there are some new guys, and they keep mentioning the names, Tobias Merriweather, J.J. Buchanan is, of course, he's a freshman tight end, and Merriweather's a wide receiver transfer. And, and there are guys there. Jadrian Zipper, he was not really playing that much in the spring, and he's a guy that I think could, he has some ability. He showed it late in the year last year. So, again, if some of those guys emerge and produce some offense for you, I think you'll be fine. I think everyone would prefer not to have Lander or Smith go over on the offense, but if you have to, you have to. I mean, you got to score points, you got to find production.
What and maybe what are you hearing about how often we will see Lander and Smith play offense? Is it specific packages? Is it specialty plays? Or do you think we're going to see them play a number of different snaps on offense? And then tell me what your preference would be, because look, before I say this, I'm knocking on wood as hard as I possibly can, but we all know the deal, Scott, with Utah football over the past couple of years. It's a roster that has been unable to stay healthy. And it's not just quarterback. I mean, you could go down the list on both sides of the ball of really good players who missed a big chunk of time. And I know what Morgan said when he was asked about Lander and Smith on offense. I wonder if you dug a little deeper, if he's thrilled about that, because I just can't even imagine what the reaction would be if, God forbid, one of those two goes down on an offensive snap and that compromises who they could be playing defense for Morgan. So what do you think it will look like, and what would you prefer as far as using Lander and Smith on offense?
Well, Smith Snowden is going to be all over the place defensively. I mean, he's going to play multiple positions depending on situations, and he's very capable of doing that. So he's a guy that's going to be a huge disruptor defensively. And Lander's healthy, and he wasn't healthy last year, and you could tell. I mean, he just wasn't quite himself, and he was just kind of fighting through a serious injury, and he's healthy now, and he's more mature, and it feels like he's taken a leadership role. It feels like he's taken a confidence role. He's confident in his ability now that he's healthy, and to jeopardize that or to minimize that, that's a huge blow to this team, especially when I think that those players are huge leaders and impact players defensively, and you lose them, it's a big loss. So I just get a sense, and because I honestly, Spence, I don't know how, with all the different options, because they've thrown a lot of stuff out there, and maybe they're just BSing people. Yeah, we're going to do this, and we'll try this, and we'll try that, and maybe it's just subterfuge, to try to get the other teams thinking that they might do this stuff and thinking that they might have to prepare for all these different looks and things and, potential, weapons Utah could use, and how do you defend that? And because really what happens, you get in the first game, I'm sure Jason Beck, he's going to be nervous. He's going to be excited. This is the biggest opportunity he's had in his coaching career. It's at the Rose Bowl. It's against UCLA. He wants to make a big impression. He's probably like, I'm going to try to keep it as basic as I can. establish the run. I'm going to get my quarterback going, and we'll see how these other guys play into it, if they play into it at all. I mean, he'll probably get into the third quarter and go, oh man, I haven't called on Lander Barton yet, or I haven't used Smith Snowden, just because you're just trying to run your basic offense. You're not getting, too cute or getting into too many different looks or ideas. And so that to me would be more of how I think the game will really go. I think these other guys getting involved in the offense is something that maybe will evolve and happen over time. I don't think you're going to want to, even in your non-conference games, do a lot of that anyways. I don't know that you want to, show too much before you get into the games that matter. But they're definitely, and I think Coach Whittingham is different this year about the injury thing, because you don't have the bodies to practice like you used to practice. And so there are some differences in the number of practices, the tempo of the practices, and there's a greater emphasis on, being and staying and keeping people healthy. I think the one thing you have heard about camp this year is that you don't hear about injuries, and I don't know that there really are any serious or significant injuries coming out of camp, where in years past that's happened. We may be surprised when we get to the game on Saturday, but I just haven't heard much about any kind of significant injury to anyone.
There's a lot that Devin has going for him. A coordinator that he's familiar with because he was with him a year ago, a running back and a wide receiver who he played with a year ago, one of, if not the best offensive lines in both the Big 12 and the country. But he also is taking a step up in competition. He knows the Mountain West Conference. He does not know the Big 12. I'll ask you a two-parter. What gives you the most confidence that this step up will be something he can handle seamlessly? And is there anything about, based off of your history as a player, when you take that step up, what are the challenges?
Well, I think Utah has a huge advantage over a lot of these other schools that have had a lot of transfers, including UCLA. I mean, when you have a quarterback and a coordinator and other players that have been in the system, but mainly the quarterback, because the quarterback really makes it happen. And so, Devin Dampier comes into this season at Utah pretty much like he would have gone into his next year at New Mexico. Like, a lot hasn't, other than, wow, I got better teammates. Like, this is actually more fun than it was. I mean, I don't think there's a lot there that, is a negative for him. And I think, now I don't know if Kyle planned this when he decided to change coordinators, like, hey, it's a package deal, or, can I look for a situation where we can get that? Because it just cuts down the learning curve tremendously. And you can see this offense from day one when they started in the spring and where they are as far as their efficiency and running the offense, and that it's actually clicking, and it's an offense, it's
Scott, are you being kidnapped? Were you just thrown in the back of a pickup truck, Scott? Are you okay? What in? Are you okay, Scott?
Am I okay? Yeah.
Did somebody just attempt to kidnap you as Liam Neeson in your house right now? What just happened?
I don't know. Did I go off the air or something?
Yes, it sounded like you were going deep sea fishing or something. But we have you back, so go ahead and finish your thought.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry about that. Technology is a great and a terrible thing all at once.
Indeed.
As far as Devin dealing with the competition on a regular basis, the thing I learned when I went from college to the pros, it was still the same game of football. And it's just at maybe a quicker pace, and that, so there's just adapting to that pace. But Devin Dampier's proven that he can play, and he's proven that he can play against quality competition. I think he'll adjust to that just fine, and I think it'll be an easier adjustment simply because he's not learning a new offense and adjusting to that kind of competition at the same time. So I just expect it to be a pretty smooth transition for Utah, and probably more so than most teams in the conference that have new quarterbacks and a lot of new position players.
Tell me what you've learned about UCLA. I mean, I keep saying this on the show. A few weeks ago, as we moved most of our coverage over into the football space, you start reading the previews, you start listening to the podcast, you start watching the shows. And the more and more I read about UCLA, the more questions that I seem to have. And we just had their play-by-play voice on, Josh Lewin, really nice guy and friend of the show. And he doesn't really know what to expect from this Bruin team that Athlon Sports has picked to finish 15th in the Big 12 out of 18 teams.
Yeah.
The Vegas over-under is 5.5. So, Vegas believes that maybe they sneak out a bowl win. They had a bowl appearance. They had a pretty solid end of the season last year, winning 4 of their final 6. But it's hard to take anything from that because they lost 8 of their 10 most impactful defensive players. They have 8 new coaches, including a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, a new running back, 3 new offensive linemen. But what have you learned about this Bruin team? What really is Utah up against on Saturday night at the Rose Bowl?
Well, there's certainly a lot of question marks, and most of them are on defense. I mean, when you get a talent like Nico Iamaleava, he can do a lot of things, even though maybe he doesn't understand, or maybe everyone's not on the same page offensively. He's a real talent, and you look at Florida a few years ago, Anthony Richardson, extremely talented, kind of new to the system, a lot of new faces with Billy Dampier, kind of very similar type of thing. And you just don't know what you have there, but you have a quarterback that can make plays. And, so it's kind of containing what he does as far as making plays. The thing that I know that they have, probably the best thing they have, and there's something about former players that come and coach at their schools. There's just a more intense commitment. There's a more dedicated, feeling about it. You look at Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. I mean, people said there's no way that Oregon State will ever win again, and he did a tremendous job turning that around. You look at Kenny Dillingham. He went back to his alma mater in Arizona State, and they care. It just seems like they care more. It's not like a job. It's not a stepping stone. And that's the thing I know, who Deshaun Foster is, and a former player, well respected, and cares about his school and about being there. And so he brings that kind of attitude to the program, and so I think you'll get a team that will fight. How good they are, how talented they are, I really don't know. I know they got a quarterback. I know they got a wide receiver. I know they got a really big offensive line. But as you said, other than that, it's a huge change. And I think the feeling for UCLA is, can we make it to a bowl game? Like that? That's what we're really interested in. And so, so they're not like, hey, we're looking to win the conference or compete for the conference. We just want to be bowl eligible at the end of the year. So they're kind of hoping to be 500 and think that they can, and they have Utah might be one of the toughest games on their schedule all year.
What sort of, in your experience, what the atmosphere at the Rose Bowl? So I hate to chuckle about this, but when Josh joined us earlier, I've got a good amount of buddies heading down to this game, and it feels like, based off the road trip options Utah football fans have at their disposal, LA might be the number one option. You want to go to the beach, you want to take the kids and do the Disney thing, whatever it is. So I'm confident that Ute fans will show well. And then I asked Josh, other than the Ute fans there, will we see a close to full stadium? And he laughed at me. He said, not even close. So maybe the atmosphere at the Rose Bowl is not what it once was, but in your experience calling games there, what sort of atmosphere should Utah fans expect?
Well, it's always the Rose Bowl. You walk in the door, and it is different. They block off seating, so it's like it doesn't exist. I mean, the Rose Bowl game is it's the coolest thing in the world. It is the coolest thing in the world. And going to the 2 years in a row, the second time did not disappoint. It wasn't okay. We've been here before. No, it was still really amazing and cool. The actual regular season games, which I've called down there before, To me, I love the venue, and there's certain fields even that just feel good, and they're just football's just meant to be played there, regardless of a non-conference first game of the season or the granddaddy of them all, and it has that feel, it has that mystique to it, and as a player, and a lot of these players grow up dreaming about the opportunity to play in this venue. And it won't matter. It's an exciting. It's a great venue. The field in and of itself is just really special. It just they do such a good job of taking care of it. Yeah, it'll be different. There very possibly could be a large Utah contingent. And certainly would make a lot of sense that for that to happen. Especially with it, it's Labor Day weekend, and so I could totally see a lot of people there. But it doesn't matter. It's the Rose Bowl, and it's just a great place.
All right, Scott, before I set you loose, tell me what your gut tells you about Saturday night. Utah 6.5-point favorite. That line feels about right to me. It has not moved very much at all. I'm sure a lot of Ute fans would very much appreciate an anxiety-free Saturday evening with a easy win for the Utes. I feel like that 6.5, 7-point spread is probably where I'll land on this when we pick the game coming up on Friday. But are you expecting Utah to head in there and roll? Do you think we'll have a close game? What's your gut tell you about Saturday night?
I really think Utah will play very good. They're very efficient. I think they'll play beyond a first game. I think having this type of game helps you to do that. Your preparation's different in training camp. I think the transition because of the Jason Beck, Devin Dampier combination is I think makes for a smoother transition. So I don't see as much chaos as maybe you might expect in a first game. I think this defense will fly around, and I wouldn't be surprised if Utah kind of won running away. I really wouldn't.
All right, bud, we'll appreciate the time. Travel safe to the Rose Bowl, and we'll get you back on next week, okay?
Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, Scott Mitchell, you'll hear him on the broadcast with the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Sly is on the broadcast team as well. 5 o'clock will be the beginning of our Utah football coverage with Porter. He'll have you taken care of with pregame coverage. Then it's time for Utah UCLA with Bill, Scott, and Sly. So we are your home of the Utes. Make sure to set your alarm for 5 o'clock on Saturday. All right, football's here. If you're a sports fan and you don't have Dish, I can tell you you're doing it wrong because I did it wrong for a number of years. There's also a situation right now with YouTube TV and Fox. So if you have YouTube TV, you might not have Utah's opening game. Make the switch, save money. You can also learn about great internet solutions with our friends at the Dish Professionals by dialing 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Spence, thanks so much. Yes, if you call us, we'll get you set up. You can watch all the games. You get the biggest, fastest DVR out there. And, guys, this promotion is stacked and stacked and stacked with lots of offers. It's got the great 2 years promotion with a 2-year price guarantee. We'll throw in the Showtime and Paramount Plus free for 4 months. But the kicker is we're going to actually give you 3 months of the full service free. So – listen, if you've got cable or DirecTV, it's guaranteed we're saving it plus $30 a month. It's usually $30, $60 a month. But if you call us and take advantage of that, not only you save that plus 3 months free, you're going to truly save thousands. Call us up today. Take advantage of this deal. We also have a half a dozen internet providers. I tell people this, listen, you can call around to all the internet providers, find out if they even offer service at your address and what their prices are, or you can just call us. You'll get the best price. We'll tell you every single provider that's available at your address and get you saving money there also. So if you're overpaying and you're unhappy with your internet, you're unhappy with your TV situation, call and take advantage of these deals. 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
Ryan from the Dish Professionals. What do you know? It's time to start thinking football, and we're only a few weeks away from the best time of year. Now's the time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA Step 3 for the weeks ahead, when the weather is still hot, but as the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, our fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find out more by visiting ifa.coop online. All right, we'll get back to college football, a little pro football too. It is cut day in the NFL during the 5 o'clock hour of the show. But some good news today. Diego Luna has been called up for the U.S. men's national team. RSL is badly in need of results. We've got a couple weeks off, so we'll see where their head coach is at right now. As Pablo Mastroeni is our guest on the other side of a quick break right here on a Tuesday edition of The Drive, right here on ESPN 700. All right, 4 days away from opening day for the University of Utah, BYU and Utah State. We'll get back to some college football coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Don't forget our coverage for Utah UCLA begins Saturday at 5 o'clock with Porter on the mic, and then we'll throw it over to Bill and Sly and Scott. RSL with a little bit of time off, a lot of time off, certainly for this time of year. So let's bring in the head coach over at Al Salt Lake, Pablo Mastroeni, on a Tuesday afternoon. Pobs, happy Tuesday, man. How we doing?
Happy Tuesday, Spence.
All right, so I suppose there's a couple different ways we could look at this break. It seems odd that at this time of year you've got basically 3 weeks off, but I guess the other side of it is you've got three really good new players that you're trying to kind of get up to speed as far as what you're looking for from them. So how are you guys utilizing what essentially will be a 3-week break in the fall for MLS play?
Yeah, it's so bizarre, isn't it? And it's again, I think the Leagues Cup, and then all the different games that continue on in other teams, so they have to move games around. So it was an unintended break based upon some of the Leagues Cup and Open Cup games. But the way we intend to use it is, again, I think you said it right, is to integrate Victor, Juan, and DeAndre into the group in a really good way, and then taking our last few games and saying seeing if there's a trend in our performances, and then the areas that we want to improve upon. So whilst getting these guys up to speed and bringing them into the group, the culture, the way we want to play, but also now getting really specific with some of the moments that are costing us points, and getting them being ready to go. So when 3 weeks we're flying on, we're hitting on all cylinders. The guys are really dialed in. There's not hey, this guy doesn't know what we're doing, or he's new to the group, he doesn't really know the guys. It's really diving all in this 3-week break and doing a lot of work.
So have you noticed any trends over the past 3 matches? Because it's the first time all year you've lost 3 straight games, and I know every game is different with different dynamics, and I know in some of the games, too many of the games, you've been hard done by the officiating. But as you go back and look at the last 3 matches, what are some of the things that are standing out?
I think the 2 biggest areas where we need to get it right is defensive set pieces, and I'll also add attacking set pieces, right? Because I think they're cut from the same cloth. And usually, if you end up, on the plus side with goals for, that's a really good campaign. We've struggled this year on attacking set pieces, which now makes the defensive set pieces harder to defend, if that makes sense, because you're not taking any pressure off by scoring goals when you have them. So in the last 3 games, we've conceded. I'd say the New York game wasn't necessarily set pieces; it was more bad calls that led to penalty kicks. But in the Charlotte game, which decided the game, was a set piece goal, and in this game we give up 2 set piece goals. And the interesting thing is like when you're talking about tactics, it's probably the area, in particular for our group, because we haven't been really prolific from scoring them. But defending, there's always this understanding that you're going to, as long as the guys know, what's being asked, and we work on them during the week, that you just don't really think about, from a coaching perspective, that's where you're going to concede. Although you do concede a lot of goals from set pieces, but it's just once the guys know what their roles are, and sometimes you think that's enough. And what I'm, again, what I gather from the last couple of games is they're in great spots. And then the next part is, are you ready for a variable getting thrown in to this next play? In other words, like, it could be first base set piece, like make first contact, or it could be we clear it. Now are you alert? And oftentimes, I think the biggest struggle with defensive set pieces oftentimes are attacking players that it's not their primary function, but they're a necessary player in that action. And so as a collective now, how do we switch on and make set pieces, as mundane as a throw-in, Spence, become the most important moment of the game? Because it just feels like, two of the set pieces we conceded were from free kicks that were on the touchline, that were on the sideline, excuse me. And so there's so much time to get your position right, to bump an opponent, to get your feet right, to make a play. So that area for me is of the highest magnitude. And the only problem with that is you can't replicate what you're going to experience in a game because there's no pressure on training it in practice, right? So we've come up with a couple different ways, and we're going to talk it through with the leadership group as to how we can make the training session set pieces be as close and mimic a game. And it could be players paying into a kitty if they agree to that. Obviously, there's CBA issues with that, so the players have to do that amongst themselves. Or there's some type of running forfeit to where it's like, we will never concede another free kick. And then there's that one-off chance, like the first goal the other night, where Diego doesn't get a good head on it, deflects off Vera, and it goes in the back of the net. And so, like, we want to work on those things, but those are kind of anomalies. But what I want to get out of the training that we do is that we're not getting scored on because we don't have 11 guys hyper-focused on this one moment. And then, obviously, the rest – we have to throw up to the universe and see how it goes. But I think that's the biggest area. And the next part is our defensive transition. In other words, when we give the ball away, how we deal with maybe even numbers against our goal, close to goal, far away from our goal. How do we deal with plus numbers? How do we deal down a guy in delay to allow our players to recover? And so in the last two or three last games, we've conceded on defensive transition. So when you look at it tactically, the way we want to attack has been really good, minus the amount of goals we'd like to score, and then defending in a block, which means an organized defensive shape. We've been good, and so now it's like really the details, the nuances of those aspects I just talked about that are deciding games for us at the moment.
Have you adjusted tactically? And this is going to be a little unfair, so let me kind of unpack this a little bit, because to compare the team this year to the team you had a year ago is a bit of an exercise in futility, because essentially your 5 best attacking pieces were taken away from you for whatever reason, whether it was a trade or a sell or player wanting to go home or whatever it is. So I hate to do the comp game because I just don't think it's a fair comparison. I just don't know that you've had the horses all year long. But last year we talked a lot about, your new formation and what you wanted to attack by changing things, tactically. Have you adjusted this year? Are you trying to play a different style at all? Or is it just a matter of maybe the talent that you had a year ago isn't necessarily on this roster?
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously, we've made some adjustments as the season's gone on. And we've looked at, a 4-2-2-2. So just a formation change. To try to get players in better positions when we had both Diego and Diogo on the field, so they were the 10s, and then in the expectation of getting Juan and Victor up front, how do we get those 4 guys on the field? So we looked at that. We've made some in-game adjustments, but I think the overarching style of play has remained the same, and a big part of that piece is we want to be dynamic in the way we attack. And we want to be stingy defensively, and that just requires 11 guys playing both sides of the ball. So I think where we've fallen short this year we've created, I think, similar amounts of expected goals in most games, but we have just not finished the ball. And there's just, I think in this last game where we have 28 shots. Now, no shot is the same, right? You can't. There's some good shots and there's some not so good shots. But I think the volume is there, and the difference between last year and this year is we had Chicho and Andreas that were shooting the ball from midfield and crazy angles and scoring goals, which were really, really low XG, and we were winning games. Where this year, we're putting the ball across the box, and somehow it's just not that we're just not finishing the play. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And at the end of the day, I think, and I think Victor and Juan are fantastic additions. I think the goal Victor scored at the weekend was an amazing goal, and 90% of it was playing as a striker does, which is being on the highest line. So I think there's definitely some differences between the two groups. And at the end of the day, though, if you're not if you're not scoring goals that you should be scoring, which is the case this year, and then you're also not scoring goals that are really low XG, you're going to have a hard time, winning games for the most part. You have to be perfect defensively, and so I think that's where the spotlight's at. Is these last three games that they've been really tight, and so the spotlight's been on our defensive set pieces. Where last year we knew that we were going to score goals, and so other teams were worried about our attacking set pieces and our attackers, and so that's kind of the change from last year to this year.
There are several things that were unfortunate about Diego's suspensions, the red card, of course, and we've gone over it. But one of the things that really, for me, was disappointing is not to be able to see him with Olatunji and Ruan Cruz, right? I mean, we need to see your group when they're all together. And we did hear the news that Diego is being called up for the U.S. men's national team coming up for the September action, so good for him. But does that continue to get in the way of you having all your pieces to see what it's like when everyone's together?
It's crazy, Spence. I feel like it's been that kind of year as far as the post moving on us all the time, and that's something that we've had to adapt to. And but we do have this week with Diego, and I think that's the most important thing. And today he was really bright and working alongside Ruan and Olatunji, and they look really, really bright. And I think in this game against Minnesota, a team that's going to sit back and be in a block, the one thing that Diego Luna could have really helped with the group with was making a play with having so many balls in and around the area. And so unfortunately, he hasn't been around. He's been suffering the last couple of weeks because he hasn't been able to play. But today he was fantastic. And to your point, I think we'll look a lot different with Victor and Ruan up front and Diego behind them for sure.
So you referenced the own goal for Vera, which was tough luck, but I thought you guys responded. And look, you lose 3-1, so it's hard to spin it positive. But for about, 15 minutes, you looked dangerous. And played some really good soccer. So I have a two-part question. When you approach that game with Minnesota, knowing who they are, as we talked about last week, knowing what a pain in the ass they are to play, what were some of the tactics you tried to implement? And upon further review, are there things you would have done differently looking back at what happened?
No. I think the game plan was actually executed. And obviously you don't when you're thinking about how the game could roll out. Like I said earlier, it's like set pieces are really important against these guys. But you pretty much say if we do a good job, it's going to be zeros, right? Because we'd worked on defensive set pieces a little bit more than we typically do last week. The guys were dialed in. Attacking wise, from a set piece perspective, we wanted to pull their big guys out, so we went short. And we weren't able to get anything from that. But so, like I said, if we were to execute the defensive set pieces, I think it would have been a zero. But I think from an attacking perspective, what we wanted to do was make sure they're a team that like to play in the low block, which means get 10 guys behind the ball, really cover the surface of the goal. And so, the way I look at teams that want to do that is if they want to defend their goal, we got to make sure they're defending their goal. In other words, we're not just passing the ball around in front of them, and we're not losing the ball cheaply, passing the ball sideways. We're going to get crosses in the box, and we're going to pick up second balls at the top of the box. And we found ourselves in such great positions from that. And now it's, okay, I got the ball at the top of the box. Do I just shoot it, or am I looking to combine around a player that's coming out the press? And so now that part, the second phase of the cross or the entry into the box, we got to get better at. But I really like the way that we were able to put pressure on their box, make their goalkeeper work, put them on their heels, so to speak, in particular the first half. And then, defensively, it was going to always be a transition. And the transitions that we were expecting were kind of what happened in the first half, where they broke out a couple times because we were playing really, really high. And so there's a lot of space to defend. And I thought for the most part, the guys did a good job. In the second half, there was a transition that was from our own mistake, a pass in the build that led to the third goal, and that we could have definitely defended a little bit better in the transition defense. So I think overall, again, just using the metrics, and looking at our stats and the way we controlled the game and the way we had a lot of expected goals, means that we're playing in the right areas, that we're creating those chances. But it's the same old boogeyman where we've got to finish those chances to be a real threat.
So as I referenced earlier, this break does give you a chance, we'll call it a mini training camp, to kind of help these three new players understand exactly what you're asking for them. So let's hear about that progress. We're on Cruz, Victor Olatunji. We saw Victor get his first goal. And then it was the debut of DeAndre Yedlin, who was acquired like 48 hours prior to you putting him in the 11. And I think it's fair to say that it wasn't his strongest game, but I think that's understandable for a guy that's just barely on the ground. So talk to me about these three. How's the progress going, and what's reasonable to expect with only 7 matches left?
Yeah, I'll start with Cruz. I think Ruan is a player that is still, he's coming from a tough situation where he almost went 6 months without really getting any first-team games, right? And so I think it takes a lot of time. It takes time to build your confidence up when you're going from that type of scenario to now being a guy that's expected to do a lot for us. So I think that, I think Ruan will take a little bit of time to get up to speed, but he, like I said, he does have really nice feet. He's creative in and around the box. I'd like to see him be a bit more selfish in creating shots for himself. But I think that will be a little bit, I think Victor played a fantastic game. I think he's a real threat. He makes our opponents really, think about him as he walks through the tunnel onto the field, defending set pieces. I mean, he's just a monster in how he uses his physical abilities. And then his finish was top class. It wasn't an easy finish. It looked easy, but he was in the right spot, right time, great finish, and continues to, day in and day out, score wonderful goals in training. And so I think we had a conversation about Andres Gomez, and I said, you can ascertain a lot about a player the way he finishes in training and executes in training. And it may not come out on Saturday every weekend yet, but you already know like what he's capable of, because if he's doing it against guys that know who he is, that know how he plays, the expectation is other teams don't know how he plays. He's going to get on the board quite a bit. So really, really excited about, Victor and what he can bring to our team in the short term as well as the long term. And then, DeAndre is a player that we need both in the locker room and on the field. Having a young group, he's got the great balance of being so personable in the locker room and connecting with everyone, but yet he is a warrior when he steps on the field. There's not a moment in training where he is just not all in, laser focused, committed, communicating, holding his teammates accountable, even though it's only been 2 training sessions. It's been remarkable. So unfortunately, all these things take a little bit of time to get up to speed, but I feel like in 3 weeks we can be whole enough to where these guys will have clear expectations. We'll have integrated into the group quick enough. And again, the one thing with all 3 of them is they have experience, now in this league, but also abroad. So they understand what's at stake, how many games we have left, and how they can contribute to help us get to the playoffs.
Had DeAndre on the program last week, and when I asked him what he enjoyed doing when he's not playing soccer, he said he likes meditation and grounding. And I said, have you met your head coach yet? Feel like you guys are going to hit it off rather famously. Is that fair?
Well, to be fair, like I haven't had any real in-depth personal conversations with DeAndre. I think he's been connecting with his teammates, but someone told me that he likes meditation, and it's weird. And I didn't know that, but he's got a really calm demeanor and reminds me a little bit of myself as a player, where off the field I was, happy-go-lucky, but when I stepped across those lines, it was like warrior time and, face paint time. And I feel like it's the same way. So I think there's kindred spirits there, but I'd be interested to see what type of, meditations he does and what that space looks like for him for sure.
All right, so here's the bottom line. You guys are 4 points out of the play-in game. You have 4 of your next 5 at home, but you're also playing some of the better teams in the league. So a couple of different ways you look at this. I mean, the one cup we've lifted here in our market was a 2009 team that entered the postseason sub 500 and just found some juice, just found some magic with that great group, and it went on to be a 4 or 5 year elite run. So you always leave space for those types of possibilities. How are you guys viewing this? What's the message to the team? What are those boxes over the final 7 matches to get you over the line? And if you're in, as you know, anything could happen.
Yeah, what I told the guys, after the last game is it's not about not playing well, right? It's not about not playing well, because I go back to the Charlotte game and I think we played well. And then the run that we went on before the Leagues Cup, where I think we'd only lost once in 9 or 10 games, we've been playing well. The problem was the first part of the season, right, that now catches up to you at the end, and it forces you to think that you have to do more than. And so the more than for us is getting better on defensive set pieces and then integrating two strikers that we believe can help us score goals, Spence. So that's the shift. And it's not a lot. It's not a lot, but it feels like a lot given where we're at. So, my ask to the group this morning was, listen, we're going to, if we get 0.5% better every day as an individual and as a collective, there is no reason why we can't compete with the best teams in this league. So even though we're playing some of the tougher opponents here at the latter part, if you win a couple of those games, you know how it is, Spence, in sports, then all of a sudden you think you can beat Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and all these things. And so what was important for me today too is a clear guideline as the areas that we need to make sure that we improve as a group. And we have to change our behavior when these moments come about, not improve tactically, improve the mentality in these moments that are really mundane at times. And I think if we can do those things, integrate these three guys, there's no reason why we can't go on a run and can't get in the playoffs and can't win a cup, and I think it's only as far, like anything else in life, the first part of achieving anything is believing that it's even possible. And so I think with this group, knowing what we were able to do before the Leagues Cup, there's no reason why we can't do that again after this 3-week break.
All right, man. Well, yeah, it's I don't know if it's criticize the league. It's so weird to have this amount of time between games this time of year. But like I said, you can look at it a couple of different ways. So best of luck over the next few weeks, and we'll get you back on soon. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you, bud.
All right, Pablo Mastroianni, RSL has dropped 3 straight matches for the first time all year. They're not in action again until September the 13th. Kansas City will be at America First Field. They get LAFC in Sandy as well. Then they go on the road to play LAFC. They'll be back home against Austin and then another home game against Colorado. They finish with 2 tough games away from home at Lumen Field against Seattle, and then St. Louis will be the final game on the road. So a lot of work left to do to see if they can get across the line. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Coming up next, but let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Pros. I don't know if you heard, YouTube TV and Fox right now, they're fighting, and Utah's first game is on Fox. If you're a sports fan and you don't have Dish, I can tell you from my experience, you're doing it wrong. You can make the switch. You can save money and get great internet solutions as well by dialing 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
This is definitely the time you want to make the switch. Listen, if you're unhappy with your provider because they're not going to get you the games, or if it's just the bill's gone up, Dish has become cheaper right now on this current offer than YouTube, and it's a lot cheaper than cable or DirecTV. So listen, call us up, take advantage of the promotion. We're going to throw in 3 full months of service. Guys, that alone is a good enough reason to switch. But having it also be cheaper, plus I'm going to throw in the NFL Red Zone free for the season and the multi-sports pack free for 6 months, plus we'll also set you up with Showtime and Paramount Plus free and dinner at JCW's. Call us today. Take advantage of these deals. Also, ask about our great internet options. It's time to call right now. Take advantage of this, why this promotion's in place, and don't miss a game. 424-DISH, 801-424-3474.
All right, 5 o'clock hour of the program on a Tuesday afternoon comes your way next right here on ESPN 700. Fall-like day outside. It's about 74 degrees, and we're going to get a little rain tonight. Looks like it's raining outside right now, actually. Expected to clear up maybe later on. And then the weekend forecast looks awesome, which is good news for college football Saturday, 82 degrees and sunny, as we are inching our way closer and closer to fall. And as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson producing the show today, behind the glass, booking the show today. We've had a fun show. We've got some college football to take you through the 5 o'clock hour of the program today. Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, will stop by. We're 4 days away from Utah and UCLA. We're 4 days away from BYU and Portland State. 4 days away from the Bronco Mendenhall era beginning for the Utah State Aggies up in Logan against UTEP. So all 6 of our local D1 football teams will be in action coming up on Saturday after a week 0 slate last week that was okay but not great. We have an excellent college football week 1. We have 3 matchups featuring 2 teams in the top 10. You don't see that very often. And, of course, very interested to see how all of our local programs do. Our Utah football coverage will begin at 5 o'clock on Saturday. So set your alarms. Porter Larson will have you taken care of with pregame coverage. Then it's Bill Riley. It's Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester, live at the Rose Bowl. The voice of the UCLA Bruins, Josh Lewin, joined us earlier today. And Josh echoed, in a way that I was not expecting, the sentiment that most people seem to have about this UCLA Bruins squad, which we don't really know much about who they are. It is a brand new team, not just personnel, but they have 8 new coaches, including a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, 2 new running backs, 3 new offensive linemen. The secondary is like all transfers. UCLA has lost 8 of their 10 most impactful defensive players. So we continue to really uncover more questions than answers as it pertains to who the Bruins are. The line remains the same. Utah is a 6.5-point favorite in this game on the road at the Rose Bowl. We have Texas, Ohio State in Columbus. Texas is the number 1 team in the country, but they're not even favored to win their opening game. Alabama is down in Tallahassee to take on Florida State. Week 1 matchups right out of the gates. LSU and Clemson, 2 top 10 teams, and Clemson, South Carolina. And your final game of the weekend slate will be Notre Dame and Miami, 2 teams in the top 10 as well. So I don't know how often you get 3 games in week 1 that feature 2 teams in the top 10, but that's what we have to kind of get things going coming up this weekend. Out of the Big 12, some non-con action. UFC will host Jacksonville State. Oklahoma State hosts UT Martin. Houston hosts Stephen F. Austin. Cincinnati hosts Nebraska. Kansas back in action against Wagner. A big one in Waco as Baylor will host Auburn. Another non-con down in Boulder. Colorado takes on Georgia Tech. A lot of these games will be starting on Thursday and then going through Friday. And, of course, your Saturday tilt features Portland State and BYU. It is the beginning of the Bear Bachmeier era down in Provo. Portland State hoping to bounce back from a 42-0 ass-kicking against Tarleton State. I talked about this earlier in the show. Coach Witt discussed this as well when asked. And this is not just BYU, Portland State. I mean, when you look at it, Kansas, Wagner, Houston, Stephen F. Austin, Oklahoma State, UT Martin, UCF, Jacksonville State. Make these games preseason games. Chase Hansen joined us earlier. He kind of pushed back on the notion. I don't think there's anything wrong with, ultimately preserving the FBS-FCS dynamic. And I understand economically why these smaller schools want to come up and get a paycheck. But we will learn nothing about any of these schools. We will learn nothing about Bear Bachmeier. We'll learn nothing about BYU. Portland State lost to Tarleton State 42-0. If BYU doesn't win by 1 million, that is a failure. And when you expand it out, Stanford loses to Hawaii week 1, and this is a program that's in flux with Andrew Luck being brought in as the general manager to try to get Stanford football back to where it was, once upon a time, first few years under David Shaw. And then they're on the road at East Carolina. So that's Portland State, Stanford, East Carolina. If I'm a BYU coach, I'm genuinely concerned that my team will not be prepped for conference play with those 3 out-of-state games, those 3 out-of-conference games. So when it comes to wanting to make sure the smaller schools can, they can still make a little bit of money with this dynamic, and wanting tune-ups prior to conference play, make these games between these 2 teams that are so lopsided preseason games. I'm not sure how that would change the economics of whether or not the schools will still be able to get paid the way they need to get paid to bankroll their football program and their athletic department as a whole. I'm sensitive to that. And I do feel like as college football moves into this different era over the next few years that settles into eventually what I believe to be will be kind of an NFL model, most of these games will go away altogether. And I don't think that's a bad thing, honestly. Even though I'm sensitive to the economics of it, it will be a scenario where powerful TV executives and television partners simply just want the best teams playing against each other every week, just like they do in pro football. It'll improve the product. It'll improve ratings. You can sell more ad revenue. All the things will fall into place. And I would prefer, a couple of opportunities to have some tune-up games prior to playing for real. I do kind of like what the SEC has done. We'll see if other conferences follow suit, where it's not just a 9-game conference slate, which is something the Big 12 does. It's something the Big 10 does. Of the 3 non-conference games that you will play in the SEC, you are forced to play a legitimate P4 opponent at least once. BYU's not doing that this year. And it's not BYU's fault that Stanford is down, but that's ultimately something that will provide a challenge. Getting into conference play for the Cougars, and it's a little bit of a soft landing into the Big 12. It's at Colorado. It's on the road against West Virginia. It's at Arizona. None of those 3 teams are thought to be Big 12 contenders. So the good news for Kalani and his staff is that by the time they get into the bulk, because they've got a bare 4-game stretch, by the time they get into the bulk of the Big 12 schedule, it's Utah at home, it's at Iowa State, it's at Texas Tech, and then it's home against TCU. Those 4 games, at least Kalani and his team will have, 3 conference games to get ready. I'll be very interested to see how BYU looks entering Big 12 play without even having an opponent that will test them during their first 3 non-conference games. Now, Utah, at UCLA will be a test, but then it's Cal Poly at home, then it's on the road at Wyoming. And Utah does not have the soft landing spot into Big 12 play that BYU does. They get Tech at home for their first conference game. They're at West Virginia. Then it's Arizona State, BYU. So 3 teams in Texas Tech, Arizona State, and BYU that are thought to be potentially contending teams in the Big 12 Conference, and a tricky road trip to West Virginia. So Utah's got to be prepared for conference play right out of the gates in a way that BYU just doesn't, based off the non-con stuff. But college football is back, and game day is right around the corner. We're only 4 days away from local college football. Big night on the station because coming up after we say goodnight in just a few minutes, it is the first Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show of the year. So Coach Witt and the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, will have some good information for you coming up after we say goodnight. The Coach Witt Coaches Show can be heard on our station. Is it going to be Tuesdays throughout the course of the season? Is it always going to be on Tuesdays?
Yes,
Okay.
But TBD, of course. There's a few weeks where, whether Utah plays on a short week or something, we may shift that up just a little bit. But either Monday or Tuesday, each and every week that Utah plays during the season.
There you go. So stay tuned for the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show. Coach Witt and Riles coming up. I have fallen down the most unfortunate Instagram rabbit hole, and it's as a result of watching. Remember that country music duo Landlaw that we were outwardly mocking for a few weeks?
My guys.
Well, now my algorithm believes that I just want to see videos of horrible musicians making music.
Yes.
And it has forced me upon this account. His name is Ryan Bass. He's a songwriter, musician, vocalist, and producer. He is none of those things. He is about a 55-year-old man, and it looks like just like anybody's uncle decided to start writing songs and singing songs. And here's the thing. Like if this was some sort of joke, if it was some sort of like spoof on certain, he is dead serious and he thinks he's killing it. And it's just this is my bad. I should have never watched those dumb Landlaw videos because now my algorithm believes I just want to see bad musicians.
Yeah, if you get sucked in, the algorithm will take you down the rabbit hole. It doesn't matter if it's like salesman door-to-door videos for some reason are always all over the internet. Like police chase videos, of course. You'll get down all the rabbit holes. The awful music with like really corny reels and Instagram videos. I don't know where that's coming from or like who is funding it or who is behind it, but it's everywhere. Entertaining, I guess.
Part of me respects the courage.
Oh yeah,
because the comments, like my man is.
The internet's not nice.
Getting fried.
Yeah, the internet's not nice. So if you have the block, whatever the social block is that you don't care, good for you. Because if you're not like a uber beautiful celebrity who is the most talented person to exist, you're going to get ripped apart by the internet, and they'll pick you apart.
Yeah, it's this one of the songs that this guy has. His whole approach is like, "Let me be the brick to your wall. Let me be the sun to your beach." One of the lines is, "Let me be the verb to your noun." I mean, it is horrific. And the first comment on his page is, "Let me be the rag to your chloroform." It's like,
nice.
Dude, like, come on, let the guy sing his songs. But it is weird. Once the algorithm believes that there's one thing they think you like, you are fed it like the rest of your days.
Yeah. I think we have to figure out a way to not do that, right? I know like the algorithm is the whole thing about this tech world, but it doesn't matter if it's like a game, right? Like a little Candy Crush game or something. Everything tech, social media, apps, they're all built with an algorithm to get you like addicted to it. I think we should make that illegal because we're running into some issues with that.
Speaking of the algorithm, two things that do not move the needle for me at all that seems like the internet continues to discuss. The Cracker Barrel logo change. I'm good with that. And then I'm very happy for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, but good luck, kids, and that's all there is.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I will the Cracker Barrel thing, like I think that Cracker Barrel had a very particular and niche clientele, which was like old people who liked their atmosphere and folks who liked their little gift store. I think when you got a thing going, just don't mess with it. But I'm not going to act like it's the end of the world that Cracker Barrel changed their logo.
No, I'm with you. All right.
And don't care about athletes getting engaged.
Well, just hoping for the best for the kids, but that's really about it. Travis Kelce is my fantasy football tight end this year, so hopefully his head is in the game.
You just want no drama.
No drama.
I want a divorce. That's what I want out of this.
You want a Taylor Swift revenge album?
I want as much, you know what? Screw it. I'm all in. I want as much drama, as much chaos as we can get from the Taylor Swift Travis thing. I want a divorce, and I want all of this to be happening while the Chiefs are prepping for the Super Bowl and she's prepping for a Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay. All right. I can see that. I have got to say, this is going to sound weird. You may not believe me if you're listening. I don't know much about her music. I just don't. I don't know if it's good or bad, but there's always something fascinating to me about an individual who can motivate intense reactions. Like the people that love her in kind of like this worship type idol way. And the people that hate her don't even want to hear her name. Like, I don't know what it is about Taylor Swift that elicits these emotional reactions. I do find it fascinating, even though I'm not very familiar.
Yeah, I don't know that it's her music, because her music it's fine. It's good, right? It's like, I think it's pretty boilerplate, like country love songs. She, to me, is the female George Strait, who perfected like good, but not pushing any boundaries music. Like you're just making the most marketable, good, run-of-the-mill country music. Now, she is really good about like tying stuff in, little Easter eggs, little things here and there that like reel her fans in and keep them going, keep them on like a treasure hunt. And that creates an atmosphere that I don't think the spouses and the boyfriends of those ladies quite like, because it's just constant. It's never ending. I think that has something to do with it. Whenever you wade into politics, even though she hasn't even really done that much, you're going to get the heat of both sides. I don't know why she is controversial, because she's really not at all. It's just about her fame.
Cut day in the NFL brought some good news and some bad news. Looks like Karene Reed is going to make the Broncos 53-man roster. Looks like Junior Tafuna has been waived. Britton Covey has been released as well. So we will bring you all of the news coming up on the show tomorrow when everything becomes official. As today, NFL teams had to trim their roster to 53 players. All right, Porter, this is the final day of the week that I will be in studio. We are about to go out on tour. I believe I'm at the Dish Pros tomorrow.
Correct.
I'm at
the new Dish Pros.
The new Dish Pros location will be up in Ogden at a car dealership on Thursday. Then I think we're at our friends Tim Dolly on Friday. Is that right?
And correct. And you're at Dish Pros on a Wednesday in which Fox News and YouTube have a deadline to... Or sorry, Fox Sports and YouTube have a deadline to reach a deal. So if you don't, or if you do have YouTube TV, you're not going to watch the Utes game on Saturday, potentially. So yeah, we'll be out there at Dish Pros fixing that problem tomorrow, and rest of it on site. Sam Bruckhouse talking some football. Jason Batacchio talking some Utes. We had the play-by-play voice of the Bruins on today. We'll have the color voice on tomorrow. Wayne Cook stops by the program, and John Wright, the I think it was last year senior champion here in Utah on the golf tour, and now we've got some Ryder Cup news on a Wednesday, so he'll cover that. Tomorrow is a big day. I know we're football centric, and I don't know how many of our listeners really give a rip about golf, but Keegan Bradley will announce his top 6, well, just his 6 captain picks. The 6 qualifiers are already locked in. There are rumors that Keegan is going to pick himself, and honestly, I would not have an issue with it. So we will do a little golf on the show tomorrow. But, of course, one eye to Saturday, 4 days away from the start of college football. Special thank you today to Chase Hansen, Josh Lewin, Scott Mitchell, and Pablo Mastroianni. For the sound you may have missed, go to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. That app is available for free in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, listen to whatever part of it you want to on your time by checking out the podcast page. We're available wherever you get your shows. The name of the show is The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available on all platforms. Subscribe, rate, review. Say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. It helps. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. The Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show comes your way coming up next right here on ESPN 700, 92 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network.